With one psyop after another, the enemy is creating more and more division and confusion, which of course is designed to polarize you into the Great Delusion, which will be a new world order of religious nationalism. Welcome to the show, everybody. Here we are yet again in number 3 of Venerable Day of the Sun. I said last week that I didn't think I would be recording such an episode or another installment of this, ongoing installment series on Sunday law coverage. I didn't think I would be recording another one so soon. And then here we are, a third one within a span of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, something like that. And here we are. It is just constant shenanigans, folks. It is constant shenanigans. And I get the feeling, and we'll talk about this today, I get the feeling that they are going to ramp up these shenanigans more and more, especially because of the election coming, because they're going to pull the same thing that they did last time, which of course we all know all these things are choreographed, folks. By now, hopefully you understand that what happened in 2020 was not the election got stolen, but the election got stolen, if you understand my drift. It was all choreographed. It was all by design to make the Trump supporters froth at the mouth and want societal change to where they're willing to trade their freedom for a person who is going to be in power and enforce things that haven't been done since the beginning of this country, which is to unify church and state. All of the choreographed shenanigans of the last 4 years of the incompetence of Biden, the obvious baboonery and buffoonery and stupidity of this, if you can even call him a man, who knows? Maybe he's a robot, maybe he's a clone. Who really knows these days, right? We are living in a clown show, folks, and if you haven't woken up to the fact that everything is the devil's world at this point, at least until Christ returns, this is just smoke and mirrors, man. Everything is smoke and mirrors. Last episode, I think I covered a story on Tucker and how he supposedly got like a $400 million deal by ABC. Apparently, that was a fake story, so I apologize for that. It didn't seem in my research that it was fake initially, so who knows? These days, people are just doing all kinds of stupid stuff. But either way, the point is this. The point is that we live in a smoke and mirrors reality. Nothing, you can't trust anything. You really can't. You could trust the Bible, you can trust Christ, that's about it. But ultimately, we live in a place of smoke and mirrors. And it's only getting worse. It's only getting worse. And they're going to ramp this up because now they have conditioned people with Trump being such a martyr for the system over the last 8 years. And again, we'll talk more about this as we go along in this episode. But Trump has been the center stage, the linchpin, the fulcrum for all these people to rally around. And of course, he's successively brought the light to the world. Of course, the false light, i.e., he's waking people up. Well, what is he waking people up to? He's waking people up to the left and polarizing them into the final solution, which is the conservative, religious nationalist New World Order, which is what we're talking about today. So that's what he's been waking people up to. His job was to bring the light of this false light system by revealing to you some things, of course, but all these things are so choreographed. Daniel 11 verse 27 says the two kings eat at the same table. They work mischief at the same table. So the two kings that are opposing each other really are working mischief at the same table, which is a profound revelation the Bible gives you. All of these secret society shenanigans, all of the dark to the light, the countless secret societies and their little internal conflicts with each other, the spies, the Jesuit infiltrators, the people at different levels that control the ones below them with initiated information, and then people are doing their part, then they flip from dark to light. All of that stuff that you can get so easily lost in. You can spend your whole life studying secret societies. You're still not going to get anywhere. The Bible just makes it so simple for you. Daniel 11 verse 27, two kings at the same table, folks. That's what you need to know. Revelation 13:2, Satan, the dragon, gave his power and authority and I forget the third one, his throne, to the beast, to the papacy. That's it. That's the two things you need to know. The papacy is the one that the devil chose to actualize his mystery religion through in this church age. And the two sides of the dialectic occult situation that you see are always working together. If you know those two verses, Daniel 11, verse 27, memorize it, and Revelation 13:2. Just those two verses alone can help you discern current events very clearly without being a conspiracy theorist or without being super knowledgeable about history or secret societies. You don't need all that stuff. I mean, those things are useful, and I certainly cover them, but you don't need to get lost in that stuff. You need to know what the Bible says so that you know what to pay attention to. So this is where we're at, folks. We are in constant shenanigans, and they are training people. Now, zoom fast forward to current events. They're training people, in my opinion, because again, I didn't expect to do these episodes one after the other like this. Who knows? We'll see. Again, you have a plan, and then God has another plan, ultimately. So I hope that they've been edifying for you. I hope they've been useful, and we'll see how this goes. But it seems to me now on iteration number 3 here, within 4 weeks or whatever, that they are doing these psyops after psyops in order to percolate, to oscillate. It's like an oscillation. It's like at first there were just a couple oscillations. Now there's more and more and more oscillations. Dark to light, dark to light, dark to light. Two narratives, two competing narratives. Who are you going to believe? Red pill, blue pill, red pill, blue pill. This is what they're doing. They are pushing and pushing and pushing these two narrative situations constantly. Because they want people to be polarized into their narrative. The counter narrative has arisen in the last 8 years with Trump. It's become mainstream. And you have people who are counter legacy media. You have Tucker Carlson, you have, all these people on Rumble, Alex Jones. Of course, he's been around for a while, but everything is being actualized in this counter narrative thread. What they're doing is they're destroying the left. Controlled demolition. Meanwhile, they're elevating the new legacy media that's going to be telling you what to do. And people are going along with it thinking they're awakening to the truth. This is the Great Delusion, folks. I mean, it's part of the Great Delusion. The Great Delusion is going to be people marveling after the beast. But this is part of the Great Delusion, is thinking that, oh gosh, we are taking Satan down, folks. We're taking Satan down with voting and with, our own efforts and with these conferences on Reawaken America and Christian prosperity and conquering the 7 mountains. We're taking Satan down. No, you're not. You're walking right into Satan's arms, man. You really are. It's just such delusion. But here we are, and they're doing these events one after the other to train you to think a certain way, right? The thing that happened with Trump a couple weeks ago or whatever it was, July 13th, I talked about it. I have 2 episodes on it. I have a breakdown of my particular opinion on it, given the facts, and the inflection point, the last episode that we did in this Venerable Day of the Sun. We talked about it in both situations. And again, I'm not attached to what you believe about it. I think the evidence is greatly in favor that he was in on it. Because one of the pieces of evidence, and there's so many. I mean, look at this whole thing where he revealed his ear recently. I think we're going to talk about that in this episode. Dude, if you had a rifle bullet pierce the upper part of your right ear, which he admitted, that's what he says in his Truth Social post, that it pierced the upper part of his right ear, and you reveal your ear less than 2 weeks after the injury, and it's literally like you can look at it, there's no sign of anything. I mean, the guy is not Wolverine to where he's just regenerating his skin perfectly. So you have 2 options. And because people have been trained and groomed, they say, oh, it's a miracle of God. Trump is the anointed one. He's chosen. He must be chosen to conquer the deep state. Or it's a delusion and you're being lied to. But people are so neck deep in idolatry and a delusion that they can't see it. That's the profound part. If anything, like, okay, I understand when the situation happened, it's tricky. It is tricky to understand, like, what's going on here? But if anything, when you saw him revealing his ear 2 weeks later, and there's literally nothing, I mean, look up close, man, there's nothing, and you believe that was an act of God versus, wait a minute, this just looks a little fishy. That means you are neck deep in idolatry. You really are. And I'm sorry to say that. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I was there myself. I have a letter. I threw it away, but I got a letter from Trump. I wrote him a letter and he wrote me back. I don't think he wrote me back, but they do these little things and they was signed and all this stuff. And I bought gold because gold is going to destroy the Fed. Look, I've been there, folks. I'm not judging anybody. I'm really not. But when I say that you're neck deep in idolatry, when you give this man such profound exceptions to your normal standard of thinking, then it's idolatry. That's the reason you're doing it, because you're idolizing this man, so you're thinking differently about him. So this is where we are, folks. We are in the process of the Great Delusion unfolding, and the world will marvel after the beast. And part of that marveling is starting in the United States with people idolizing this man, Trump, and going along with him like a Pied Piper into their destruction, which will be a religious nationalist system. And as you notice, I'm not calling it Christian nationalist anymore. I'm calling it religious nationalism. And we'll talk about this today as well. I think that we need to pivot. And look, I'm guilty of it too. I used Christian nationalism for quite a while, and I'm not condemning anybody. I'm just saying, let's be more accurate with what we're saying. Let's pivot. Just like when I did my Satan series and we looked at Lucifer and how that's not really the devil's name. It's really just a mythology created really by the KJV originally because of their poor translation choice in Isaiah 14. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check that series out. Great edifying series. But if we call the devil Lucifer, what you're doing is you're giving power to the occult idea that Satan is the savior for them. He's the light bearer. Where really Lucifer is it's a noun that's used in the Latin Vulgate. And two of the times it's used by Peter and in Revelation to describe Jesus as the morning star, the dawn, the shining sun, the star that brings us light, the true light. And that's just a noun. And of course, it's been mythologized. So when I have an opportunity to call the devil, I either go and call him the devil or Satan. I'm avoiding the word Lucifer from now on. It is what it is. We learn as we grow. And same thing with Christian nationalism. I don't expect you to call it religious nationalism tomorrow, but be aware of what it means when you say Christian nationalism. Ultimately, it's a counterfeit that it's Christian. It's not actually Christian. There's nothing Christian about Christian nationalism. What it is, actually, it's a more accurate term, is religious nationalism. And the world will be a religious New World Order. That's exactly what's happening. It's always been about religion versus the truth. Look at the people who killed Christ. They were religious. The Pharisees and the scribes. They were the most religious people there were. So religion is the enemy because religion is an extension of Satan and his accusatory slave system that he's always wanted to operate so that he can be in control. Anyway, here we go again, right? And this is going to be some great stuff, so make sure you use the timestamps. We have a lot to cover. I do feel like they're clogging the news cycle with constant psyops to continually push people into this dual narrative thing. You're going to see it today, hopefully. And in some sense, it's good that they're doing this because it's giving us material to see what are they really up to. And again, I think that they're really prepping people for an election upset. But this time it's going to, swing the other way. I think they will try to quote unquote steal it. But the point is that people will wake up, again in quotations, and I think they're going to do something different. But either way, they're prepping people for this dual narrative. And of course, the real narrative is outside of the duality. That's my point for you today. And I'll keep reiterating is that you need to get out of the dualistic mindset. That's the real narrative. There's the left narrative, the king of the south, then the right narrative, king of the north, who seems a little more reasonable. But really, they're both deceptions. You have to extricate yourself out of that. There's just so much evidence that came out in the last 8 years, especially again with Trump versus the satanic deep state or the satanic dark side, that people have been convinced of an evil side and a good side. When again, really, that graphic of the hands playing chess, you got to understand, this is the devil that's underneath the table playing himself, folks. It's not the devil playing God's chess. They're not on equal levels. God has already won. This is just playing out. The devil is playing himself with one evil-looking hand and a really nice, well-manicured hand that's coming to rescue you. And they're playing chess, and oh my gosh, it seems like the King of the South is winning, but now King of the North. And it's just this drama. The world is a stage, said the Jesuit-inspired Shakespeare. Who knows if he was a real person, but either way, the world is a stage. And if you know anything about the Jesuits in the last 500 years, then you know that the stage and drama and illusions are something that they're very masterful at. In fact, the person who developed the first projection onto a wall, fun fact, was a Jesuit called the Magic Candle. I forget his name right now, but anyway, he was a Jesuit. He developed something called the Magic Candle, and it was this little contraption where you could project images onto a wall. So they know their Greek mythology, folks. They know their Plato's Cave. They know their mythologies and their stories, and they know how to manipulate people's emotions and perceptions of reality. That's been going on for hundreds of years, folks. You are at the tail end of the Jesuits practicing shaping culture for 500 years. Do you understand that? Do you understand how absolutely mind-blowing that is? That the level of deception and practice that they have at shaping the way people think, both through things like, Hollywood, the Magic Candle, the Jesuit theaters in Europe, propaganda. Now you have social media. They've been doing that for a long time. On top of that, they have practice at revolutions. So many revolutions they've done to get the ball moving in different directions. You're at the tail end of that. So do not, how do I say this? Don't be surprised. Like everything that happens from now until Jesus returns is going to be a psyop after a psyop. It's going to be increasingly more delusional. So you need to be aware of that because nothing happens on the news today that's random, that isn't choreographed. They don't have any time to waste. They know that Jesus is coming soon. So anyway, the PSYOP, whether it was an inside job with Trump or not, same thing with this Olympics thing we're going to be looking at today. That's going to be one of the main topics. We have a lot of articles to cover, but the Olympics was just another one of those things where it's like, okay, let's divide people into these two narratives so that they can go into the one we want type of situation. So this is the point, folks. These dualities are increasing. They're pushing hard at you so that you are trained to accept their version of the truth. By showing you, look, it's an inside job. Look, it's a psyop. Look, they meant to mock Christ at this Last Supper thing. It's not really a Roman party, this kind of stuff. It's all by design, folks. This is the point. And the moment you accept one side of the narrative, doesn't matter which one, you are immediately sucked into the storm. Do you understand? When you choose between red or blue, it doesn't matter which one you choose, you have chosen to become part of the duality. Red does not exist as red in and of itself. Red is red because blue is blue. Does this make sense? This is how they're interdependent on each other. And that's why when you go with one or the other, you are now in the storm of duality. Red is red because blue is blue. Red is not objectively true. Okay? Christ is not red or blue. Christ is Christ. Christ is the truth. He's the true light. He's independent of these things because he's the objective truth. But these things are dependent upon each other. Red is red because blue is blue. So if I choose red, that means I'm against blue. And if I choose blue, I'm against red. They always define each other based on their opposite. So if you accept that, well, the deep state was after Trump, and that was just a near miss, what does that mean? The way it's choreographed makes you believe that, boy, that must have been an act of God, because that bullet really, he was so close. There's just no way that could have happened without some sort of divine intervention. Therefore, well, God must be favoring Trump. Well, therefore, God, Trump must be the one that helps us from this deep state. And there's evil actors in the government that are trying to kill someone. That's really bad. Do you understand how these things polarize you immediately? And of course, same thing with this whole Olympics thing, which we'll be talking about today. These things are designed to work duality. You have to choose the perspective that is independent of duality. And that's my goal with everything that I do, is walking the narrow road. You have to walk the narrow road. The job of the devil is to go like this. Hup, push you to the left, push you to the right. No, that doesn't work. How about this one? How about up? How about down? How about, sideways? How about diagonal? Anything he can do to push you off balance. Anything. Whether it's emotions, anger, greed, pride, lust, envy. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care what it is. He doesn't care what it is. Some people get angry, some people get sad, some people get jealous, some people get envious, some people have lust. He doesn't care, folks. He doesn't care. Just get off the narrow road and get into the storm so you can be destroyed. But the point of today, folks, is that the dark makes the light look good. You need to get this. You need to get that the dark and the light, two kings, what do we say? Daniel 11, verse 27. Two kings work mischief at the same table. The dark makes the light look good. They work together regardless of what it seems on the outside. You have to understand that the dark and the light work together. In fact, in my Dark to Light playlist, I have an episode titled How the Light Will Use the Dark. Go check it out. It's great current events there. Of course, some of those things are in the past, obviously, but the point is that the principles are what are timeless. So go watch those things so you can get edified. Watch my Christian nationalism playlist. Of course, I decided whether, to change the name or not. I've decided to keep that playlist that's the same, titled Christian Nationalist playlist because, again, people who are new to this stuff, if I were to title it Religious Nationalism, it's like, well, what does that mean? I don't really understand. I want people to come out of this Great Delusion. And a lot of people who aren't familiar with all this stuff about the end times and things that we're talking about, like the Great Delusion series, my end time series, things of this nature that hopefully you have watched by now to be edified of what's coming and to be edified in great principles of end times truths. People who aren't edified in those truths, they don't have the terminology. And so I decided to leave that the way it is. But going forward, I'm really going to talk about religious nationalism. And that's another thing I want you to get out of today. Besides that the light and dark are working together, the dark makes the light look good, all this kind of stuff, that you should call it religious nationalism, because that's really what it is, folks. It's religion, which is slavery and of the devil, and it's nationalism, which is a type of government, which is basically how do you define red? Well, red is the opposite of blue, politically. Red is red because blue is blue. Nationalism is nationalism because it's the opposite of communism. But at the end of the day, the result is still the same, folks. It's still the same, state religion system. Of course, communism isn't religious, but it is a religion in of itself in some sense. The people who started communism are very religious. And of course, the state becomes your religion at that point. So look, it's all the same flavor in the end. It doesn't really matter. I don't know if anybody's using this term, religious nationalism, but I am deciding to use it or coin it, whatever it is. I haven't seen it around, so maybe other people are using it. But religious nationalism, that's the point of today. There's nothing Christian about Christian nationalism. We've said this before. And I personally have had a hard time, up until recently, figuring out, okay, well, I don't agree with Christian nationalism. Like, I don't like that term because it's a way for them to kind of look noble and right, and look Christian while doing it. It's just like a version of Christianity. Well, no, it's not. It's papal, military taking over of the state and controlling all things, just like it was for the last 2,000 years. So how do we call it? Well, up until recently, I couldn't have a good name for it. And so it just occurred to me, and I thank God for that, to just call it what it is. Religious nationalism. It has nothing to do with Christianity. Christianity and religion are two different things, folks. So let's not confuse the two. And again, I know people are familiar with the term Christian nationalism because that's been very branded out there. And in context, they understand what we mean. But the more accurate term is religious nationalism. And that's the term I hope that you will start using yourself. It's religion taking control of the state. It has nothing to do with Jesus, has nothing to do with the gospel, has nothing to do with the Bible. It is twisting the scriptures to achieve a antichrist system, which was what the Bible warned about through Daniel, through John, through all sorts of things. So my encouragement to you is to start practicing using this term because it helps you really zone in on what the real issue is. The problem is with this whole Christian nationalism thing, which let's put it now from the perspective of people who are Christian nationalists, people who are Seven Mountain Mandate, NAR, all about this stuff. The problem is if you use the term Christian nationalist, these people will argue, well, you're just against Christianity. If you're against Christian nationalism, it seems like you're against Christianity. And that's the deception, where they put this front up for basically defending themselves through a shield of righteousness. that, oh, you must be against Christ if you're against Christians taking over government and making it better from all these atheists and satanic Democrats. You must be against Christianity. This is the trap that we want to avoid. So we want to pivot away from basically using Christian nationalism because we don't want to be put in a situation where it seems like we are against Christianity or against Christians, because this is exactly the angle they're going to use to fight back at you if you denounce Christian nationalism. So we want to call it religious nationalism. Anytime you find yourself in a discussion with somebody on this topic, religious nationalism. I am against religious nationalism. I am against religion and the nation, the state, uniting, because history has shown us that not only is this a horrible idea, but the Bible has shown us in its historical presentation of the church age that this is exactly what we need to be afraid of, is religious nationalism. So I'm not against Christianity. I know you aren't either. I'm against religious nationalism. I'm against religion of all kinds because it's contrary to the gospel, and nationalism mixed with religion is historically proven to be a very bad idea. Very bad idea. The last 1,700 years of history, people don't realize, were religious nationalist under the papacy. You had, various, federation of various city-states and countries all pledging their allegiance to the Pope. It was a religious nationalist system. How did that go for us? Well, not too well if you know your history, folks. Mother of abominations for a reason. The religious nationalist system that's coming, which is a new world order of religious nationalism, will be a state system of some kind where the nations of the world, the kings of the earth, will give their power to the woman riding the beast. Of course, who's the woman? The woman is Mystery Babylon, which represents a couple of things. In my opinion, Mystery Babylon is not just the Catholic Church in the sense that she represents the mystery religion, the Antichrist spirit throughout the whole of history that's been around, the sun-worshipping, devil-worshipping mystery cult of religious slavery. But she is presented to you in Revelation 17 with identifiers that leave only one option, which is the Catholic Church, which, if you cross-reference it with Revelation 13, verse 2, what does that mean? That to me, what it says is the devil has always had this religious system since the Garden of Eden, with the forbidden fruit and all the lies that came from it, all the way through, the flood, the pre-flood world with all the stuff that they were doing. Then after that, with the Tower of Babel and Nimrod and the sun worshiping, it's been around since the beginning, folks, is this mystery cult. And in the church age, meaning post-cross, where the devil was kicked out of heaven, no more place for him as the accuser, time is short, then he has been allowed to basically create a counterfeit and give his power to this counterfeit to bring about the mystery religion of the ages, dressed up as the woman, who of course is wearing red and purple. She has a cup. She's very wealthy, as the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the manifestation of the mystery religion of the ages. And that mystery religion was always a religio-political, religious nationalist reality. The devil has always had a man on the throne to counterfeit Christ. Christ is our spiritual king ruling over all things. The devil has a counterfeit God king through people like Pharaoh, the Pontifex Maximus, the Pope, all these different God kings that basically ruled both religion and politics. And the devil would use them to, maintain his mystery religion. So there's nothing new under the sun, folks. This is what we're headed to, and you need to be aware of that. The future is not Zionist, the future is not communist, the future is not Muslim, it's not atheist, it's not WEF, it's papal. The world will marvel after the beast. So we have a lot to cover today, folks. We really do, and I'm just blown away. Really, I'm very grateful that people are so active to the point where I don't have to go and hunt for stories anymore. I do, but a lot of the stuff now, like, again, I didn't expect to do this again so soon. Literally, this is now a week after the last one. And so much has happened in a week, and people just send me stories and say, what about this, what about that? That literally I'm like, oh my gosh, I have enough for another episode again, which is great because it means people are paying attention and they're learning, which is the whole point. So make sure you subscribe, hit that share button, share it with your family and friends. And if your family and friends are knee deep in delusion, neck deep even maybe, try to wake them up with this stuff, folks. Don't be passive. Look, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but one of courage. And God has also not given you supernatural awareness to sit on your hands and do nothing. You have to understand that you are in the battle of the ages, folks. This battle has been going on since the beginning of time, and we are at the climax, the end of that battle. God has brought you into this life to witness these marvels that John and Peter and all of the saints of history could only wonder about. And here we are with the luxury of history in the corridor of time, right at your fingertips through the internet, and videos like this and people, doing updates and communicating quickly with each other. You have such an ability to learn. And the gift with that, if you are learning, it means God is giving you awareness and training you and speaking to you and guiding you. The gift with that is also being able to give and participate in God waking other people up. I'll say this again. There are two foci right now. Revelation 18:4 says that, "Get out of her, my people, lest you share in her plagues." So God is drawing out his elect from Mystery Babylon, the mystery religion, from delusion. You never know who God is going to rescue. Even those people with their little band-aids on the ear and they're frothing at the mouth for Trump, maybe in a year they're going to come out of delusion. You never know. You really don't. Well, at the same time, of course, the devil is drawing everybody else to himself. Everybody else that God has not chosen to reveal himself to. And we don't know who those people are. We really don't. So we, from our perspective, we're just in it. And you have to just try and be in these battles and stand for the truth. Don't be passive. Don't just sit there and watch videos. Watch videos, learn, engage people around you at your churches, in your families, in all these different avenues and forums. And don't be passive, folks. Be part of the exciting journey of God drawing his elect out of Babylon and rescuing us. And of course, giving us supernatural protection and guidance and provision and so on. So don't be passive. Help people grow some Fennec fox ears. Also, really quick, if you want to support me, the website is the best place to do that. I don't trust YouTube. I do appreciate everybody who's on YouTube who gives me like super thanks and stuff. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I just don't trust YouTube. I never know. I haven't had any issues with them, but I just don't trust them. At some point, they have control over everything. With Substack, with my website, I have control over my followers or whatever, my contacts and so on. So at the end of the day, I can just go and use that wherever I want. So if you want to support me, the website's the best place to do it. $5 a month or $50 a year gets you a full membership. You don't have to have a full membership to be member to the website. But if you do want to support me, that's one way to do it. There's also a donate button there. You get a ton of free perks. You can watch ad-free. Stuff is very organized there as well. You can have a search engine for my content. I know there's a lot of content to search between articles and videos and studies and so on. So that's really handy. You don't really have that on YouTube. And I'm still bugging them to do like timestamps for their videos. We'll see if they're going to do that sometime soon. I think once they do that, that'll be very competitive with YouTube, because that's one thing YouTube does that's really handy, is having the timestamps. But either way, you can watch ad-free. That's always super handy. Learn to eat the meat, spit out the bones with all these things, and ultimately develop yourself as a Christian and as somebody with discernment. Learn also to extract yourself from this dualistic game, folks. Be the observer. I hope that all these resources that I'm creating for you and the library that's online that you can search, that you can get involved in. Again, you don't need to be a full member to do that. Most of my stuff is free. Every time I publish a study, I will publish it on the Bible Studies page, and that place is free. You don't have to be a paid member to do that. All the videos are there. Normally, when I publish a video on the website, it will go behind a paywall after a week, so for paid members. But that doesn't mean that video won't be somewhere else where it's free. It's just there's an automatic mechanic that Substack has that has to be done, so that's why that's there. But anyway, eat the meat, spit out the bones, learn to extract yourself from the game, because this is the key. This is the key to getting out of Great Delusion. And so many people are trapped in it, as you can hopefully see by now, because they're just not aware of the truth. They're not aware of the truth. That's what the Bible says in 2 Thessalonians. Because they did not love the truth, God sends them great delusion. So this is a great, great deal. People did not love the truth, and so they've abandoned objective standards. And as a result, what do you have? What do you have? If you don't have the truth, you have duality. That's what you have. You have red and blue. If you abandon the third option, which is the truth, then all you have is choosing between the two options. And either one you choose, you're in the game. So cling to the truth. There's more delusions coming on the horizon, each with its increasing drama. Be prepared for it. Be prepared for the false narrative and the counter narrative, which both of them are really false. But you'll see this again today with the Olympics, because they're just priming people to think in two. Think in two. And one of them is wrong and one of them is right. But really, they're both wrong. And the truth is beyond that. They're both lying to you. So don't get caught in the trap. Hopefully today will be very edifying for you and it will increase your discernment on some of these things. So our first topic is religious nationalism. And our first stop is a series of general articles on religious nationalism, showing how this is rising more and more, how religious thinking is proliferating throughout the country, especially in the United States, how people are unifying church and state, and ultimately how this confirms the trajectory that the beast will be worshipped. Everything we've been talking about with the historical interpretation of prophecy that identifies the beast, the first beast from the sea, as the papacy. Everything we talked about with the woman riding the beast and the trajectory of history going back to a religious nationalist New World Order is being confirmed. So people who have the wrong hermeneutic, i.e. futurism or preterism, you're wrong. You're just so wrong. And I hope that God will open your eyes. I really do, because futurism and preterism are Jesuit inventions. They really are. Anyway, that's another tangent. But let's get on with it here. This is from Crosswalk. Yeah, you can see it. Okay. All right. Crosswalk.com. This was actually earlier this year. I did cover one of the stories about this, but there's something else interesting about it. 12,000 baptized in historic California event. God is not done with America. So God is doing something, folks. Must be God. Hundreds of churches across California teamed up on Pentecost Sunday weekend to baptize 12,000 people as part of Baptize California campaign that was billed as one of the largest synchronized water baptism events in history. So just because it's big, it must be good. That's the kind of thinking that we're entering today. The Saturday-Sunday event saw more than 6,000 people baptized at the campaign's headquarters in Huntington Beach, and an additional 6,000 baptized at participating churches across the state, according to preliminary numbers cited by FaithWire. Quote, God is not done with America, and we are convinced that if we can unite the church and turn fully back to, I almost read this as unite the church and state, but that's pretty much what they're doing, and turn fully back to Jesus, he will heal our land, said Pastor Mark Francie of Oceans Church, which hosted the campaign. Which really, you have notes of nationalism there. You see, heal our land. Why is it heal our land? We should be heal your soul, folks. Give you a new heart. That's the point of turning to Jesus. The turning to Jesus is not healing your country. Do you see the religious nationalism? I didn't even notice the first time I read it, but now I see it. Anyway, the event was followed up to last year's Baptized SoCal event, which saw more than 4,000 people baptized at Pirates Cove and Corona del Mar. Organizers are already planning for a nationwide Baptize America campaign for Pentecost Sunday 2025. This will be June 8th, so in a year from now, approximately from the time of this video, a little bit less than that, keep your Fennec Fox ears open for Baptize America, which they say will be a historic day across the United States. Project 2025, the Lucius Trust, the 2025 year Love and Light, 2025 being a Jubilee year of the Catholic Church, Baptize America 2025. Do you see all these things coinciding? The European Sunday Alliance and their little 2025 agenda. It's all happening, folks, because again, it's all coming together. The beast tells you that the Jubilee happens on the every 25 years, which of course is a counterfeit of the real Jubilees. But either way, 2025 is the Jubilee of the Catholic Church. That's a big deal for the snake. So they have to celebrate by bringing people more into delusion. This is the website Baptize California, and look at here, they have Baptize America. In 2025, Pentecost Sunday will be a historic day across America. Sign up for updates below. Get in on it, folks. Let's get on the delusion. Sign up your name. Look at this dramatic lust of the eyes video technology. Just, oh my gosh, look how exciting it is. You can be part of this thing. And you can be part of this great thing with worship music and hippie writing. Baptize California, baptize this, baptize that. What is happening here, folks? is this, look at this, the stimulation they're giving you with the eyes. The largest synchronized baptized in history. Does that make it good? Does it make it good that it's the largest? What does the Bible tell you about these things, folks? It tells you that there are going to be false converts, great delusion, false prophets, wolves in sheep's clothing, false teachers, false teachings, fairy tales, myths, falling away. How does that coincide with this? I wonder. Look at this stuff. Find a church. I mean, it's just great delusion, folks. Now, look, I don't deny, and this is important, I do not deny that some of these people showing up to these events will be saved, genuinely, that God is drawing the elect however he wishes. You know, he could use Tony, what's his name? Joel Osteen. I was going to say Tony Robbins, but Joel Osteen to save somebody. He can use anybody to save anybody. See the point? So I am sure that people attending these events, some of them will be genuine elect, and they will have their own path and journey with God as a result of these things. However, just because it's got worship music and trendy stuff and the largest event in history and churches are all doing it, oh my gosh, it's going to be so great, that doesn't mean it's a move of the Holy Spirit, that God is coordinating these things. It doesn't mean that, because God warned you of the opposite at the end of time. So these people who are all Seven Mountain Mandate people, who are all latter rain, NAR, Pentecost, whatever people, believe the opposite of what the Bible tells them in order to justify these things. And we've talked about this so many times, but the main error is that they believe history is getting better. And, very important, that you can do something to make it better. See the point? Where God tells you the opposite. Where he says, I have predestined reality. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's getting worse before I return. That's what the Bible says. So the devil always does the opposite, and that's how you know it's got the devil's signature on it. Where God tells you, I have predetermined reality. Here you go. Here's a perfect book. Now, again, I'm not talking about a translation. I'm not saying the KJV is perfect or the ESV is perfect because those are translations. I'm talking about the meaning of the Bible, the information that is conveyed that you can extract through interpretation. That meaning is perfect. Here you go. Here's perfect meaning. Two kings at one table. So you know you don't get caught up in the duality. And who do you need to watch? Well, you need to watch the Catholic Church, because that's who the devil gave his authority to manifest the mystery religion of the ages and receive worship. That's all you need to know. That means, okay, I watched the Catholic Church. Well, what do you know about the Catholic Church? Well, you know that in Vatican II, they changed positions and pivoted towards this whole charismatic movement. They love the charismatic movement. The Jesuits are all about it. Of course, they've had that with the Jesuit exercises. And if you go back in time before that, you look at hesychasm was created by a Catholic. You look at hesychasm and you look at the Kundalini spirit today with all these charismatic things. It's all the same spirit, folks. It's the mystery religion that is manifesting, and it will all be united. And of course, in the last one, I think I showed you a picture or a video of Catholic megachurches. My gosh, Catholic megachurch. If that's going to become a thing, that'll be quite something. But either way, it's a mystery religion that's coming forward, because the Bible warns you that things are predestined. Here you go. Read them for yourself. Compare them with history. Of course, if you're a futurist or a preterist, you don't do that, and that's the whole point. So you don't see where the devil is at and what he's doing, but read the Bible, look at history, and then compare it and see what it has to say. It says that everything's getting worse, and it's all predetermined, and you can see it happening because God told you. So when you see these people saying, no, we can do this, we can make it better, and Jesus is going to return if we convert everybody, and we got revival, and it's happening, and our land is going to be healed. What does the Bible say? When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. That's what the Bible says. So these are delusions, folks. And of course, they require an inversion in order to be justified. Moving on. This is from February 2024, the Radical GOP's Seven Mountain Mandate by The Big Picture and Todd Beaton on Substack. Speaker Mike Johnson has not been shy about letting us know just how religious he is. In his very first speech he gave after being a speaker, he made it clear that he felt he had been chosen by God, which we looked at this speech in I think in one of my episodes. I think it was one of my Christian Nationalist episodes. I believe the scripture, the Bible, is very clear that God is the one that raises up those in authority. True, Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, does that mean he raised the deep state in authority? See, that's the thing that people don't want to admit. He raised up each of you, all of us, and I believe that God has ordained and allowed each of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. True. I agree with that. But the purpose that he thinks he was brought up for and the purpose he was actually brought up for are two very different things. And during a subsequent interview, he was upfront, and his worldview is driven by the Bible. His worldview is driven by the Bible. Quote, I am a Bible-believing Christian. He said, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview. That's what I believe. Well, I believe that too, Speaker Mike Johnson, but the question is, how do you interpret the Bible? You can believe the Bible and be a word of faith, prosperity, charismatic NAR person, and you could call yourself a Bible-believing Christian, but you're actually not believing the Bible, you're believing your interpretation of the Bible. So that's an important distinction with this whole religious nationalism thing. So when people say, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, well, what do you mean? Do you actually believe the Bible, or do you believe your interpretation of the Bible? That's an important point. Even before becoming speaker, he had led prayers on the floor of the White House, or the House. And now, during a recent GOP conference weekend retreat supposedly meant to buck up his caucus to hold on to their slim House majority, Johnson reportedly treated the gathering more like a religious one than a political one. And it didn't go well even among his own rank and file. Of course, we talked about this, I think, in a previous episode at some point where he had this very, sermon, basically, and some people didn't like. And, of course, the left is jumping on any opportunity to take them down. But the Seven Mountain Mandate is very real, folks, and I want you to, this is why I chose this article, I want you to realize what it is and what people believe about it. And, of course, if you know who sits on seven mountains, then you know where it's from. What is the Seven Mountain Mandate? There is a movement among many right-wing political leaders that embraces the notion that religion, specifically Christianity. Notice, religion. Christianity is not a religion, folks. Really quick break, just because this is important. Christianity is a way of being. You have to understand something very simple and very, very profound about the gospel, which makes it unique. Religion is defined as doing in order to be or to become. I need to do in order to be happy, saved, ascended, transcended, whatever else, right? There's something you have to do in order to be, to achieve a state of being. You got to meditate so you can reach nirvana. You got to do prayers and works so you can reach heaven. It's always doing in order to be, which is slavery. You'll never become. You'll never be, because doing cannot arrive at being, at least not a permanent state of being. You can arrive at transient states of being. And that's why they keep you enslaved. But it can't arrive at a permanent state of being. The difference between Christianity and everything else, really the gospel, is that it's the other way around. Being results in doing. God gives you a new state of being, something from nothing. And your new state of being results in new works and new actions. Faith without works is dead. But that doesn't mean you do works in order to be saved. It means if you truly are saved and God has given you a new state of being, a new heart, a new spirit I will put within you, it results in new works, new thoughts, new ways of doing things, new ways of relating to people. This is the point. That's a profoundly different way of understanding reality. The gospel is being in order to do. And of course, you aren't the one doing the being. Nobody can come to the Father unless they're drawn, or nobody can come to Jesus unless they're drawn by the Father. You must be born again, and being born again is like the wind. You can't control it. You don't know where it comes from, don't know where it goes. This is the profound revelation of the gospel, that you must be in order to do. And I don't mean that in a New Age way. I mean in a very realistic, practical way. You must have a new heart in order to do new things. Religion is, you got to do these things so you can do this and that and be this and that. That's slavery. So when you see, going back to our article now, when you see a notion that religion, specifically Christianity is not a religion, folks. You need to reject that association. Christianity is a way of being. Jesus came to reveal to you a way of being, a new and profound and ultimately the only true way of being, which is to be like God, to be conformed to his image, where he just is. And things just radiate from him because he is. And he shares that isness with us. He gives us a new heart. He gives us his will through his spirit. So we start to take on new actions and a new life. It's a profoundly different way of being and existing because you aren't the one doing it. So Christianity is not religion. When they say Christianity, what they really mean is religious nationalism, Catholicism, all the counterfeits that you can lump in there. So you got to be discerning. Anyway, now we can move on. that Christianity should have dominion over all aspects of society, particularly the government. As Lauren Boebert put it bluntly, the church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. Is she speaking, by the way, like the popes? The answer is yes, so you know who's really speaking through her. To believe this, of course, Christian nationalists like Johnson and Boebert must reject the entire notion of the separation of church and state that was clearly laid out by Thomas Jefferson. And indeed they do, as Johnson himself puts it in a CNBC interview last year, quote, "The separation of church and state is a misnomer." He's actually right. He's actually true about what he says here. People misunderstand it. Of course, it comes from a phrase that was in a letter that Jefferson wrote. It's not in the Constitution. Also true. Very true. And what he was explaining is that he did not want the government to encroach upon the church, not that they didn't want principles of faith to have influence over our public life. It's exactly the opposite, which is true, folks. He's very right about this, and I've covered this in my End Time series. The separation of church and state is a misnomer. And of course, that misnomer is coming to the forefront. This is an appeal to heaven flag that they've appropriated it to their whole. So when you see this as a very, NAR type of religious nationalist type of thing. Dubbed the appeal to heaven flag, it has been co-opted from its origins in the Revolutionary War to become a symbol of the New Apostolic Reformation, NAR, sect of Christianity. This is not Christianity, folks. NAR is counterfeit, is Catholicism, basically. Charismatic Catholicism. According to the New Republic, a central tenet of NAR's belief system is that it's God's will for Christians to take control of all aspects of society, including education, arts, and entertainment, the media, and the business, to create a religious nation. Or, as NPR warned about NAR apostles, many embrace a concept known as the Seven Mountain Mandate, which says Christians have a duty to God to control the seven pillars of society: business, education, entertainment, family, government, media, and religion. This movement has its roots in Revelation 17, 1 through 18, in which verse 9 says, "And here is the mind which has wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains." So what is Revelation 17 about? My gosh, people are so stupid sometimes. What is Revelation 17 about, folks? It's about the Antichrist system coming to basically power. The woman, which represents a church, riding a beast, which represents a political power, a system, which means who's on top? The church is on top, controlling the political system. It's revealing to you a picture of the mystery religion of the ages coming to the forefront, manifesting as a religio-political union of the Catholic Church controlling all aspects of society. And you're telling me openly that these people say, oh, it's inspired from Revelation 17. Well, yeah. What is Revelation 17 talking about? It's talking about the control of Satan over all aspects of society and him receiving worship. But anyway, if you know who sits on seven mountains, then you know who the mandate is from. And his authority to take over the world derives from Isaiah 2 verse 2, where it says, "Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains." Is this talking about controlling all society? Or is it talking about the eternal state? This is the problem, folks. These people appropriate the Old Testament. They love to appropriate the Old Testament to their ambitions. Of course, the Old Testament never talks about conquering the seven mountains for Christ. Very important distinction. I know we'll take another break here. I hate to do that, but another very important thing you need to be aware of in these conversations with these people. The Old Testament has certain pictures it portrays to you about religion, right? The Levitical practice of the Hebrews and the Israelites that God was doing with them, with sacrifices and the priestly class and so on and so forth. And politics, which, like the kings, and all these things were united. And of course, in the Old Testament, it had to be that way. There was a religio-political system. Yahweh was demonstrating his righteousness, his power, his sovereignty, his omnipotence to the other religio-political counterfeits like Egypt, Assyria, Rome, Babylon, and so on. Of course, Rome, by the time Rome came along, Jesus was around. But my point is, there were religio-political counterfeits in the world. And Yahweh was demonstrating his power through his religio-political union of the religion, right? Of the sacrificial system, which really was still based on faith anyway and obedience. But anyway, that's another topic. And the union of politics. God also shared his authority with the kings to enact justice on, for example, the Canaanites. Joshua was given authority to kill the Canaanites and to destroy everything because they had sinned greatly. God was sharing his judicial authority with various peoples, even with pagan kings like Nebuchadnezzar and Sennacherib, who were pagan. God shared his authority with these authorities in order for the plan of salvation to move along. However, huge asterisk, and this is the problem, just like with dispensationalism, where they use the Old Testament to interpret the New Testament, and they're stuck in this dual reality where the Jews have a special thing with God, and here's the church, and they're going to do this and that. Nonsense. Where God has one, the devil creates two. God says one plan of salvation, the devil says, no, there's two. The Jews have their own thing, and we have our own, and we're over here, and they're over there. Nonsense. There's only one plan of salvation. Well, same thing. Where religion and politics are united in the Old Testament because they had to be. The Christ hadn't come yet, right? The Christ is who? Christ means the anointed one. Anointed for what? Anointed for God to come into his creation, to receive all authority over all things, and to rule. That's the point of the Christ. That we can be with God, that God can rule. He has legal authority to all things because he's fully human and he's also fully divine. Well, the Christ hadn't come yet in the Old Testament, so God was the relationship between God and his people and authority and religion and politics was different. It was very united. It had to be. What happens as a result of the New Testament? Well, what happens is Jesus is born. The Christ has come. Excuse me. The Christ has come. And what does Jesus tell you? I have received all authority over all things. So he's the one who's ruling in heaven at the right hand of God. He's the one who's taking care of all things. He's sovereign. He's ruling. We don't need to worry about taking over the seven mountains. As a result of the cross, we have a spiritual king. The Christ has come. And he's taken authority over all things, over all principalities and powers. There is nothing that you need to do. It is assured. Victory has been assured since 2,000 years ago. And yet these people are fighting for materialistic outcomes. Religion and politics, or as I should say, spirituality and politics are separate in the New Testament. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God's what is God's. We are in the world, we're participating in this world, of course, is ruled by Satan, but we're not to go and conquer the seven mountains, folks. We're to spread the gospel because why? Because Christ is king and he's ruled since his ascension. He's conquered death, he's conquered evil. We are proclaiming that victory. We're not taking over society, which is just madness. But of course, these people go back to the Old Testament where religion and politics were united, and they use the Old Testament to justify themselves. And you will see this over and over and over again. In my short documentary, Should Christians Be Involved with Politics? It's an animated documentary. Check it out. I address some of these issues where they misappropriate the Old Testament to make it seem like, oh, well, see, the religion and politics were united in the Old Testament. That means they should be right now too. No. There's been a drastic change of authority since the Old Testament. God doesn't share his authority anymore with pagan kings, with anointed kings, with prophets. There are no more prophets and kings. Jesus is the prophet, the king, and the priest. He's assumed all authority. So we have him. He's in heaven. We are connected to him. We're spreading the gospel. We're protected for. We're provided. We're guided. And we're given everything we need. So why do you need to take care of this? Why do you need to take control of the seven mountains? It's absurd. But of course, if you understand the trajectory of Bible prophecy, it's not absurd because it's exactly what the Bible predicted, that these people would come into Great Delusion, and that's because they're going to get destroyed. Anyway, little tangent there. Moving on. As L. Hardy wrote in the outline, these modern apostles want to use the seven mountain mandate to reshape America and the world ahead of the end times. This is the point. We need to do something in order for Christ to return. Hardy further warns of the seven mountain mandate's theocratic wave of populism that uses charismatic leaders to inspire change from the bottom up, and is ultimately powered by the belief that in fulfilling the criteria for God's return to earth, the religious right can justify walling themselves off from the demographic shift that is pushing them further into the minority. In other words, there's no need to appeal to younger or more diverse populations because if all goes to plan, the world will be ending anyway. That's the point, folks, is an apocalyptic type of approach where we need to bring about the end times. But again, if God has given you the end times very clearly, 2,000 years ago, and in fact, even more than that if you count the book of Daniel, he's prophesied all of these things to you, giving them very clearly to you. Do you think that you can accelerate, slow down, change the timing of, etc., with your own efforts, with voting, with a candidate? I mean, come on. Come on, folks. This is a delusion, and this is exactly what they want you to do and think. This is from Medium. Now, this is an earlier article, but it kind of goes with the last one. Trump evangelicals and the Seven Mountain Mandate. Some of the most influential people you've never heard of appear in the picture below. I admit I didn't recognize any of their faces, but when names were identified, I realized the significance of it. Here's Trump from a couple of years ago, 2019, and he's surrounded by all of these Seven Mountain people. You understand? This is the point of this article, is really to see the picture. See the big picture behind the picture. This is from The Hill. Project 2025 director steps down amid Trump campaign criticism. Now, of course, this has been in the news. I've covered it a little bit too, which is this back and forth between the Trump administration and Project 2025. Oh, I don't know who this person is. I have no idea who's behind. Now, look, if you believe Trump, that he doesn't know a clue about Project 2025, that he doesn't know anything about it, then I have some wonderful beachfront property for you. Block. I don't want to allow you to give me notifications. Block these little... I need to get an ad blocker. Somebody told me to get an ad blocker. That's a good idea. I'm going to try to do that maybe for next time. We'll see. Hopefully it'll work. But anyway, I have some beachfront property to sell you if you believe Trump doesn't know a thing about Project 2025 when most of his policy aligns with Project 2025. And Project 2025 is backed by 100 plus conservative organizations. It's not like this random... group of people yelling in the background. This is a big deal. But anyway, the director steps down, and of course, this is just more shenanigans and theatrics. Here we are. The director of the Heritage Foundation's led Project 2025, Paul Dans, is departing from the role. Remember this name, Paul Dans. The conservative think tank's president, Kevin Roberts, said Tuesday. When we began Project 2025 in April 2022, we set a timeline for the project to conclude its policy drafting after the two-party conventions this year, and we are sticking to that timeline, Roberts said in a statement. Paul, who built the project from scratch and bravely led this endeavor over the past 2 years, will be departing the team and moving up to the front where the fight remains, Roberts says. We are extremely grateful for his and everyone's work on Project 2025 and dedication to saving America. Our collective efforts to build a personnel apparatus for policymakers of all levels, federal, state, and local, will continue. They're just moving people around, folks. You have to understand. Same thing with Klaus Schwab, which we covered earlier in one of these episodes. Klaus Schwab is stepping down in 2025, I believe. He's not going anywhere. He's just there giving a pat on the back. Okay, you did your job. You played your part to get everybody riled up about the deep state. Now step down, and we're going to shift from dark to light, and you can be over here doing whatever you're going to do next. They're all actors, folks. Here's the part I wanted to read, though. Remember the name? Dans was previously chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management in the Trump administration. All drinking from the same table, folks. King of the South, King of the North. Whenever you see these dualities and people fighting against each other, they're working mischief at the same table. After the news of Dan's exit became known, Trump's campaign released a statement that essentially welcomed the news. Again, just such theatrics. President Trump's campaign has been very clear over a year that Project 2025 has nothing to do with the campaign. It did not speak for the campaign and should not be associated with the campaign of the president in any way. The statement from La Civita and Trump advisor Susie Wiles stated. Now, if this is true, if the Trump administration truly doesn't want to be associated with Project 2025, then it needs to divorce all associations to every one of the 100 plus organizations that are supporting 2025, like Turning Point USA and a bunch of others, that he's always associating with. So you see, it's all just lies and nonsense. Reports of Project 2025's demise would be greatly welcomed and should serve as a notice to anyone or any group trying to misrepresent their influence with President Trump and his campaign. It will not end well for you, they said. Ooh, brandishing the swords. The Daily Beast first reported that Dans would depart from his role, but a source closer to Project 2025 told The Hill that the Daily Beast's suggestion that the staff change indicated that the effort could shut down was incorrect. Of course, what did the president tell you? We're going to continue. We're going to continue. Why? I have so many ads. Okay, here we go. Still, the director's exit amid the criticism from the Trump's campaign put a spotlight on the tensions between the conservative nonprofit sphere, that hopes to push policy to the right and campaign operatives wary of alienating swing voters and looking to ensure victory in November. Under Paul Dan's leadership, Project 2025 has completed exactly what it set out to do, bringing together over 110 leading conservative organizations to create a unified conservative vision, motivated to devolve power from the unelected administrative state and returning it to the people. Now, if you believe they're actually returning to the people, again, that beachfront property has your name on it. This tool was built for any future administration to use, Roberts said in his statement. This reminds me, I've covered this in many places, but reminds me of the quote by Jerry Falwell of the Moral Majority, where they disbanded it after achieving their goals. And he said something like, I'm probably going to misquote it, but it's like, we've achieved our purpose. The Christian conservative right is in position for the long haul. Like basically, Jerry Falwell did what he needed to do. Again, if you understand these things, they get these people to do their thing and then they step down, they get another one. It's constant theatrics to make you think that things are evolving and changing, but really they're getting worse, folks. Just like evolution, just like actual evolution. Of course, evolution is a lie, but evolution says, oh no, they're getting better. Look, things are changing. Yeah, they're changing. They're becoming more specialized. They're losing genetic information as they're becoming more expressed in different directions. Evolution is it's a farce. It's taking what you see, which is change, and telling you it's getting better, when actually it's getting worse. Same thing with this. Oh, look, some guy stepped down, some new guy came in. Oh, they're fighting. Trump is declining this, they're doing that. They're all working at the same table, folks. It's all just lies. And of course, people who have no discernment get tripped up by the lies. So anyway, Project 2025. In MAGA, we trust. Gosh, I've covered this guy. This is that gun-worshipping church, basically, that's in, I think it's in California or somewhere. But this guy, it says, this is from The Sun. In MAGA, we trust. Trump was chosen by God. Hail worshippers in the MAGA church who believe Almighty saved Don from assassin's bullet. To millions of fanatical followers, there is a new Trinity in American politics. God, guns, and Donald Trump. And to some, the controversial Republican candidate really is the chosen one. Here's that guy. I forget his name. I think it's in here somewhere. Last Wednesday, as Trump took the stage at the gigantic Bojangles Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina, Hyungjin Sean Moon, that's right, Sean Moon, would not have been anywhere else. The pastor runs the Rod of Iron Ministries, which I've covered in one of my episodes. I've got him on the cover. Check it out in the Christian Nationalist playlist. They're crazy, folks. These people are just totally crazy. Also known as the MAGA, or Make America Great Again Church. And his sect worships with AR-15 rifles by their sides. It's totally crazy. He has like a bullet crown. Just crazy. Crazy stuff. Crazy times, folks. Speaking to The Sun on Sunday, as the excitement was building among the large crowd, moments before the 78-year-old took to the stage, he told us, "We believe that God has chosen Donald Trump and he preserved his life during that terrible assassination attempt that the whole world saw." So you have an extremist telling you exactly what the counter-narrative is. So you can see there's narrative, counter-narrative. You have to be outside of this duality. Moving on. He dodged that bullet by God's grace. Of course, there's no other possible explanation, right? That 15-degree turn to the right saved his life, and it was God's hand. Superhero status. Moon, also known as King Bullethead, added, Trump stands for Christian principles, but God doesn't use perfect candidates. He just uses people who are on his side. We feel President Trump is standing up for Christian values and real Americana, and we are so grateful. Real American values, I'm guessing. Even though he is not perfect, he's standing on the right side of history. No, the right side of history is to stand with Jesus Christ, folks. And if you place your faith in Christ, you will be on the right side of history. If you are on the right, politically right side of history, you are on the wrong side of history. And so I hope people realize that. Moving on. My father was freed from a North Korean death camp, and we fled from communism. Dark. We know what communism is, and we don't want it here. Light. And I think that's all I highlighted. I just want to that bit about communism. So what's the point? This guy went from dark to light. He went from one oppressive regime, atheistic regime, which was designed, by the way, to make Catholicism look good, to exactly the outcome, which is demanding that church and state be unified and ruling with an iron fist. How is that any different? How is that any different, folks, when these type of people take power and you and I refuse to bow to this system, and these people with the AR-15s demand, maybe our life or that we go into prison? How are you any different from the system that you fled? Sean Moon, how are you any different? You're not. That's the point. But you don't see it. That's the Great Delusion. Anyway, Gun Church loves Trump. That should tell you everything. Oh, here we go. This is Trump says some interesting things here at this rally. And he says that I am not Christian. Let's take a listen.
And again, Christians, get out and vote.
Get out and do something. Come on, we have to rush this thing.
Just this time.
Just this time. Pay attention.
You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm not Christian.
I'm not Christian.
I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote. And again.
So, a lot to unpack there, but the thing to pay attention to is that he said, I'm not Christian. You can listen to that clip for yourself. I think it's very clear that he says, I'm not Christian. The question is that part of his occult, Freemasonry stuff where he's got to, deny Christ in front of people and so on? I don't really know. It's really strange. Like the time where he read that snake poem. And it was just so awkward. Like, okay, are you revealing the hand? Are you revealing the method? Because that's what you have to do according to your religion. Same thing here. It's so strange. It's just a very strange thing. You can listen to it for yourself. But anyway, the other point is that you'll see this message of, you got to do something. Come on, Christian. Get angry. What are you doing? Wait till we get to like Andrew Tate in the Olympics. Oh my gosh. So much to talk about with that stuff. But it's just, again, what do you see? Christians are getting baited to act. Come on, get in the duality. Choose your side. Do something. This is from The Guardian, which is, of course, these things are liberal, but you got to eat the meat, spit out the bones, folks. Both sides are telling on each other, and you have to learn to read from both sides. Terrifying Democrats react to Trump saying people won't have to vote again. So everybody's up in arms now about it. Democrats have expressed outrage after Donald Trump told a group of Christian supporters on Friday that if he wins the presidency in November, they would never have to vote again. I wonder why. Christians, get out and vote just this time. The former president and current presidential nominee told the crowd at Turning Point Action's Believer Summit, which, by the way, Turning Point is one of the top people for Project 2025. So what's that about, Mr. Trump? Quote, you won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore. My beautiful Christians. If the snake were ever talking, this would be it. You got to get out and vote, Trump continued. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good, you're not going to have to vote. Who is controlling this? I have to take a break here because this just annoys me to no end. If supposedly the election was rigged last time, despite Trump having a massive landslide, all the numbers were rigged and all the machines were rigged. And then you see all these supposed narratives like with Sidney Powell and Giuliani, they all got sued. They all lost their court cases to Dominion. So what does that tell you, folks? Well, the deep state's in control and they're controlling every aspect. So now, supposedly, 4 years later, where they've controlled everything, somehow, we don't know how, the mechanics aren't explained, but we're going to have it fixed. How are you going to have it fixed if supposedly the deep state's in control and Dominion won all their court cases? How are you going to have it fixed? Do you see the stupidity of this? And people are like, we're going to fix it this time around. It's like gambler's fallacy, folks. When you go to the casino, it's like, I have a 2 in 10 chance of winning. So if I play 10 times, I have to win. No, your odds of winning are still 2 out of 10. Of course, they're much greater, or they're much less than that, probably 2 out of 10,000. But either way, your odds of playing are always the same every time you play. The more times you play, it does not increase your chances of winning. That's the gambler's fallacy. Same thing here. This is the same type of fallacy. Oh, well, this time if we vote, we're going to really fix it and we're going to do it this time. What do you mean you're going to do it? If you're the one who argued for 4 years that the election was stolen, that they did all these things with the machines, and nobody did anything, about that narrative. It was just there as a little carrot to string you along as a conservative. So you're distracted and you're focusing on Trump and how he's just a martyr of the system, and the big bad cop is the big bad deep state is the bad cop, and they're after Trump and he's the good cop, and so on and so forth. All these things have just been theatrics. And now you're telling me that we have to go out and vote because we're going to have it fixed, and it's going to, oh yes, it's going to be good. Well, how are you going to have it fixed? How? Please tell me. Please tell me how you're going to have it fixed. I'm so curious how you're going to have it fixed when Dominion won all their court cases, and all your little lackeys like Sidney Powell, who were supposed to fight for the common man and prove and expose the big bad deep state and their election fraud, they didn't do anything. They caved and they lost their court cases, which of course was probably all by design. So this is just nonsense. It just infuriates me to see this kind of charlatanry and harlotry and deception. Anyway. Moving on, a spokesperson for Trump's campaign told the Washington Post that Trump was talking about uniting this country and bringing prosperity to every American, as opposed to the divisive political environment that has sowed so much division and even resulted in an assassination attempt. Well, no, that wasn't really what happened. But anyway, if you believe that, then yeah, you can believe that Trump is here to bring unity and prosperity, which of course the Bible says the opposite. When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. But Trump's comments spread quickly across media, causing outrage and alarm among many Democrats and others who called the remarks terrifying, authoritarian, and anti-democratic. The left is telling on the right, folks, but nobody believes the left anymore, which is a really fascinating phenomenon. The Congressman Daniel Goldman, who represents New York, also chimed in, stating the only way you won't have to vote anymore is if Donald Trump becomes a dictator. And the Representative Pramila Jayapal called the remarks terrifying on social media. King of the South is definitely worried that the King of the North is going to storm him pretty soon. The constitutional and civil rights attorney Andrew Seidel replied to the video of Trump's comments on Friday by writing, quote, "This is not subtle Christian nationalism. He's talking about ending our democracy and installing a Christian nation," which is true. These people are telling you the truth. This is the funny thing. Who these people are probably, atheist Jews from the looks of the names. But either way, liberal, atheist, probably secular, who knows what they are, but they're telling you the truth. And nobody believes them because most people are on the other side of the illusion. Do you understand the point? This is so brilliantly evil. The people in control have polarized you by exposing you the evils of the left so that you don't believe them anymore. And you side with the good guys, in quotation marks, so that when the left is exposing to you the good guys is actually the counterfeit good guys, you don't believe them. You say they're just being, the sour grapes and so on, and being envious or whatever else. This is profound. And of course, if you see through the dialectic, you can see both sides. Oh, this is from AP. Same thing. These are all like June, July type of news. Again, this is like the last week or so of news, which is just crazy. What's the title of this? Netanyahu meets with Trump at Mar-a-Lago offering measured optimism on a Gaza ceasefire. Of course, they're pushing this whole peace in the Middle East narrative again. Even Trump's not president yet. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu worked to mend ties with Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump on Friday, offering measured optimism about progress towards a ceasefire deal for Gaza as he neared the end of a contentious U.S. visit that put on display the growing American divisions over support over the Israeli-Hamas war. That's right. People are starting to question the whole Israel thing. Zionism starting to get exposed. Okay, we're reaching critical mass with that. So now it's time to change the narrative yet again. Just in time for Trump to come back and create a false peace narrative in the Middle East that is ready for the Third Temple to be rebuilt, a charismatic revival, and a conversion of the Jews. Anyway, that's another can of worms. At Trump's Florida Mar-a-Lago estate, where the two men met face-to-face for the first time in nearly 4 years, Netanyahu told journalists he wanted to see U.S.-mediated talks succeed for a ceasefire and release of hostages. Yeah, right. I hope so, Netanyahu said. Yeah, right. When reporters asked if the U.S. trip had made progress, while Netanyahu at home is increasingly accused of resisting a deal to end the 9-month-old war to stave off the potential collapse of his far-right government when it ends, he said Friday he was certainly eager to have one, and we're working on it. I don't believe a word this person says. Of course, all these people are just actors and secret society members. But here they are sharing a meal, two kings at the same table, folks. And the ultimate thing you need to remember is that the Jews will be converted. And all of this dispensational nonsense is designed to suck you into the coming Great Delusion that's coming, which is the third temple being rebuilt. I've said this before. They're not letting that go, folks. The Jesuits haven't invested 500 years of lies and trickery into this false version of prophecy just to stop with that narrative. The third temple will be rebuilt. And if you think it's hard to rescue people from delusion today, wait till they start building the third temple. That'll be something. This is from ABC News. Hopefully it's a real story. Vance argued for higher tax rate on childless Americans in 2021 interview. I think it is real because they're insulting him. But anyway, what was I highlighting here? I highlighted something on here, and it seems like it deleted my highlights. Let's see if refresh works. Does refresh work? It does not work. I will be right back. All right, we're back. Sometimes these things just delete my highlights, which is super annoying. But anyway, Vance argued for high tax rate on childless Americans in 2021 interview. This is of July 2024. So a lot of stuff is coming up, obviously. And it's just, again, confirms the same old stuff. As former President Donald Trump's new running mate, J.D. Vance, faces renewed scrutiny over his previous comments criticizing childless individuals, an unearthed 2021 interview shows the Ohio senator advocating for higher tax rates on Americans without children. The comments came in a 2021 episode of The Charlie Kirk Show podcast where Kirk, the CEO of the conservative student organization Turning Point USA, same old faces, folks, was discussing how Republicans could shift public perception of certain conservative ideas from unthinkable to accepted policy. So that was the discussion. How can we shift things from unthinkable to, yeah, it's great idea. Quote, so JD, what are you going to do to change this conversation? Everything we have to do, we should be about moving ideas from unthinkable to sensible to popular to policy, said Kirk, according to a video of the interview obtained by ABC News. This tells you everything, folks. I'm going to read this again because it's so poignant. Everything we have to do should be about moving ideas from unthinkable. So that's the starting point. Unthinkable to sensible to popular to policy. Is he speaking like the snake? Of course he is. The Jesuit masters have trained him very well. In response, Vance, who at the time had not yet officially launched his 2022 Senate campaign, suggested that the country needed to reward the things that we think are good and punish the things that we think are bad, before suggesting that individuals without children should be taxed at a higher rate than those with children. Vance made the comments during the 2021 March appearance on Kirk's show, but the YouTube page for the episode now reads, "This video has been removed by the uploader," and the interview is also no longer accessible on Kirk's podcast, Rumble account, or on the podcast services. The video appeared to be public as recently as February of this year, but it was no longer accessible by Wednesday, according to Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. ABC News located an audio version of the interview that remained online, but not on a website run by Kirk. A spokesperson for Kirk told ABC News that earlier this year, multiple long-form videos on Kirk's channel were removed due to a reorganization of the page, and that the removal of Vance's 2021 interview had nothing to do with his selection as vice president. If you believe that, beachfront property right here in Phoenix, folks, is going hot. Let's see what this next one says. From Oklahoma Voice. Again, same thing, July 2024. Oklahoma Superintendent Ryan Walters unveils guidelines for how to teach the Bible in schools. Who is this man that he's revealing guidelines on how to teach the Bible in schools? This is what you have to ask yourself, folks. Who's determining how the Bible is to be interpreted? If you're a Bible-believing Christian, what do you mean by that? What do you actually believe? Do you believe that the Bible says that we can manifest what we want through our words and God wants us to be prosperous and rich and wealthy in this life? And you're a Bible-believing Christian in that sense? What does that mean? It's a nonsense term. So you have to learn to discern these things. Oklahoma City Superintendent Ryan Walters issued guidelines Wednesday for how teachers should include the Bible in school curriculum that included requiring analysis of biblical stories and art. And amid a growing swell of pushback from districts, he warned there would be consequences for school districts that don't comply. Grade-level specific guidelines apply to students in 5th through 12th grades. They require students to analyze literary elements of the biblical stories and to identify how those have impacted Western culture. Does that have to deal with the actual point of those stories? What are the point of the stories, folks? The point of the stories in the Bible are not about of course, they're beautiful stories. The Bible has romance, it has drama, it has everything in it. But that's not the point. The point is not to put them on the same level as a literary work, like from some other author. The point of those stories is to reveal Christ and the gospel. That's the point. So unless you're getting to that point through all of these analyses, all you're doing is you're bringing the Bible down to the level of a literary work, just like Jordan Peterson does, and makes it all about the stories and the human condition. And of course, what do you have as a result of that? You have a man-centered gospel, a man-centered understanding of these very, very important stories, which are supposed to convey a Christ-centered understanding. Moving on. For high school students, it entails assigned essays on the Bible's role in literature, history, and culture. Pieces of art and music inspired by the Bible are also required to be taught. Every classroom must also have a physical copy of the Bible. Which version, I wonder? The United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Ten Commandments. What is this? What is that? What is that supposed to mean? Okay, we need the Bible, we need the Constitution, we need the Ten Commandments, we need the Declaration of Independence. Are you putting all those documents together on the same level? Yes, you are. You are in effect saying all of these things belong together. Religious nationalism, self-invented religion and traditions of men. We need these documents and they're together and these represent what we believe in. Well, what if one document contradicts the other? What if the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution had nothing to do with Christ, they didn't believe in the deity of Christ. They didn't believe really in the gospel. They didn't trust in Christ's perfect work on the cross on their behalf, because if they did, they wouldn't have written the things they did. And Thomas Jefferson wouldn't have torn pages out of the Bible and created his own version of the New Testament that rips all the miracles from Jesus and just makes him just this New Age teacher, basically. He wouldn't have done that. But yet, he's one of the people that wrote those documents. And of course, those documents are motivated by humanism and Enlightenment philosophy and the forbidden fruit. So why are you putting them together? They have nothing to do with each other. You don't need a Bill of Rights if you have the Ten Commandments. If everybody believed the gospel and was saved, you do not need a government telling you, here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. Here's this. It's a government authority that is not God legislating to you what is right and wrong. And you're combining that with the Bible, and it's creating a counterfeit, which of course is religious nationalism. Quote, the Bible is indispensable in understanding the development of Western civilization in American history. No, it's not. Of course, Bible is indispensable, period. But American history was not, America was never a Christian nation. That's one deception these people are under. Walters said in a statement, to ensure our students are equipped to understand and contextualize our nation, its culture, and its founding. Really? I beg to differ. Every student in Oklahoma will be taught the Bible in its historical, cultural, and literary context. As we implement these standards, our schools will maintain open communication with parents to make sure that they are fully informed and full partners in their kids' education. Walters announced the inclusion of the Bible in the state curriculum during a June State Board of Education meeting, but Wednesday was the first time his agency announced specific guidelines regarding their inclusion. In the weeks since Walters' announcement, some of the state's largest districts have said they will not comply. King of the South brandishing a sword. Following the announcement, Rick Cobb, superintendent of the Midwest City Dell City Public Schools, said in a statement that it is not appropriate to mandate the Bible to be in classrooms or instruction. The Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled this summer that selection of instructional materials is a matter of local control. Cobb said, I hope that remains the law and continues to be our practice. Walters said that he will ensure all districts comply. So now you have brandishing of two swords coming at each other. The tension is getting there. You see the two narratives again. You got the liberal narrative, you got the conservative narrative, and they're brandishing and putting the tension on the person who is observing. You have to make a choice. Who do you support for? Who's going to win? Who's got the bigger sword? Of course, the Bible tells you the king of the north has the bigger sword, and that's by design. King of the South is just there to make him look good. Some Oklahoma educators have indicated they won't follow the law and Oklahoma standards, so let me be clear. They will comply. And I will use every means to make sure of it. Is this the kind of person that is hardcore ready to legislate Sunday laws? And if it comes to the point where people say, well, we don't believe in this, will he support forcefully putting these people to obey or to putting them into a prison or even worse? Is he that kind of person based on his language and his behavior with this particular issue? Yes, he is. He will make these people comply. That is a very important precedent. Let's put it that way. Here he is, nice young chap, probably a Jesuit operative, but who knows? Be interesting to learn more about these people, but either way, all roads lead to Rome. Here's another interesting video. Going back to the Trump thing, there's all these narratives are happening simultaneously, folks, and it's kind of like herding cats trying to keep track of all of them, but this is an interesting video. Let's take a look.
The Scofield Bible, its theology is deceptive.
A very wealthy, very charismatic preacher named John Darby came with this doctrine that's now referred to as the secret rapture or the pre-tribulation rapture. And guess who he was connected to, by the way? The Rothschilds.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard of a
True.
Scofield Bible?
Yes, I
Through the Oxford Press.
have.
Okay, so C.I. Scofield was basically a student of John Darby, and he adopted that part of the doctrine, and he incorporated that into the Bible. It was the first Bible ever made that had study notes with it. It became so popular, every Christian was reading it, every minister was reading it, including me, including my own father. For a long time, that's what we believed too. But when you start actually going back and reading line by line by line what is said that will be leading up to Jesus coming back, which is when the rapture happens, it's the inverse of what John Darby put down.
My sense was the Scofield stuff, which has had massive implications for our foreign policy, for example, and in our domestic politics, was probably a lie. What you're saying is...
Do you understand how significant this video is? It is profound, especially what Tucker said at the end. The Scofield Bible, and he didn't really like directly jab at it, but he made a very, very, very important point. I hope that you caught it. The Scofield Bible has been so important in our foreign policy. What is he talking about? He's talking about our foreign policy with Israel, because the Scofield Bible is the one that created basically, this modern dispensationalism and Christian Zionism and all these Christian Zionist people who are frothing at the mouth for Israel. And here comes the rapture. All this stuff was influenced. That's what he's pointing to. And he's interviewing this guy who came out of dispensational thought into the new thing, which is probably more NAR and charismatic understanding, because again, we've talked about this in my Great Delusion series, that the charismatic movement has now taken over through the NAR, has taken over, traditional dispensationalism. And now when I saw this video, I'm like, wow, that is something. And if you understand the trajectory of things, I covered this in my Great Delusion series, which is that traditional dispensationalism has been taken over by charismatic Christian nationalism, religious nationalism, right? The NAR. The people who are dispensationalists are now being converted and being absorbed into this charismatic NAR nationalist system. And that's been happening for like the last 20 years, 30 years. And so modern dispensationalism is now fusing into this idea that's more about like, well, we need to convert the Jews. There's no more rapture. This was a deception. So Scofield and Darby are being exposed on mainstream channels by Tucker, by whoever this. I think this guy is John Rich. I think he's is that the channel author? Maybe I don't remember what the guy's name is, but anyway, he's like a country singer. I think he wrote like a religious song. It's about, I forget what it is about, but anyway, he wrote a song about religion and the nation and stuff like that. So he's talking about how he saw the light of the truth that the rapture is false, and so he's exposing the Darby is connected to the Rothschilds. Everybody knows about the Rothschilds, and of course everybody knows they're Jewish too, and so this is really, really interesting. I hope you find this interesting because it's telling you, it's again confirmation that the dispensational thread is getting absorbed into the NAR thread. So what happens as a result? Well, the things we don't need to be exposed now. Now we need to reveal them as the truth so people can polarize yet again. Oh, this is not the truth. We actually need to convert the Jews, guys. The Jews aren't going to be converted when the rapture happens. The rapture was fake. He was all about, Darby was with the Rothschilds and Scofield was a Freemason. Of course, they didn't say that in this video, but these guys were deceivers. There's no rapture. We need to convert the Jews. See how they get you? They go from one to the other. Of course, if you don't question these things, you get easily swept up in the revelation they're giving you. Oh, Darby, what? Rothschilds, the rapture's not happening? Then what do we need to do about the Jews? Well, wait a minute. What assumption do you have? Your assumption is that there's a Jewish conversion at the end of time. That's not what the Bible says at all. There are elect Jews that come to and fro from that population. Not many, but there are elect, but there's no Jewish revival. That's not what the Bible says. Watch my end time series. Question your assumptions, because if you don't question that assumption, then the counter narrative can be fed to you very easily and quickly. There's no rapture, guys. The Jews aren't converting when the church is gone. We have to convert them. That's the revelation. That's the light. We got to bring the kingdom of God to earth and with this to conquer the 7 mountains and then get the Jews to see Christ. And it's going to be great. Revival. Whoa, 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 whoa. The Bible doesn't talk about revival, folks. The Bible doesn't talk about the Jewish conversion. But it does, in a sense. You know how it does? It does in Revelation 13 where it says, all, both rich and poor, free or slave, great or small, will be taking the mark. Of course, the elect will not take the mark. But it does say all, and all includes the Jews. Now, you have to use deductive reasoning. You don't have to be a history buff. You don't have to know quite a lot. You just have to read the Bible, folks, and to use deductive reasoning. If the beast is the papacy and the mark of the beast is Sunday rest, because the beast has bragged about its authority to changing the Sabbath from the 7th day to the 1st day, and the Bible tells you that everybody's going to have to make a choice to take this mark, and most people are going to take it because they're going to be deceived. That means that the Jews have to come and see the light of Sunday rest and have to be converted. Of course, they're not going to be converted to the real deal. They're going to be converted to this religious nationalist system, to Catholicism, to charismatic Christianity, to the NAR, to the Messianic movement. All these things are coming together into one Great Delusion. And with the Third Temple, which I talk about in my Great Delusion series, it's going to reach a maximum. But this video was fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating to me. And again, it just confirms the trajectory of all these things we're talking about. That now they're exposing these things that they used for 80 years to galvanize Christians around the false dispensationalist futurism. But now, once they've gotten everybody in place, and it's time to expose the Zionists. You see all the Zionist stuff is happening on the news now. People are starting to question Israel, which never happened. Time to expose dispensationalism through the rapture. And of course, once the rapture is taken out of the equation, the solution presented to you is we have to convert the Jews. Well, gosh, that makes more sense now. If the rapture isn't happening, which of course it's absolute nonsense, but if the rapture isn't happening, then that means, well, I guess the Jews still have to convert somehow. So maybe the Christian nationalists are right. Maybe the religious nationalists are right. Maybe these NAR people are right. We do have to convert the Jews. You know what? Maybe they're right, and Jesus is going to return. Oh, that's the new thing. This is the way it's going, folks, and it's just crazy. Christian Post, Elon Musk says he's a cultural Christian, reveals how he was tricked into transing his son. So Elon Musk has now gone from dark to light. My son Xavier is dead. Here he is. Billionaire Elon Musk said in a recent interview that he identifies as a cultural Christian, kind of like Richard Dawkins, that he is dedicated to destroying the woke mind virus after he was deceived into signing off on the gender transition of his son. While I'm not particularly a religious person, does Elon Musk see Christianity as a new way of being, or does he see it as a religion? He sees it as a religion. I do believe that the teachings of Jesus are good and wise. Yeah, so did the founding fathers, by the way. And that there's tremendous wisdom in turning the other cheek. Musk told Jordan Peterson, that should be a red flag for you, during an interview for the Daily Wire. While noting a punch in the nose is sometimes warranted against bullies, Musk said the pursuit of vengeance is ultimately futile. I'm actually a big believer in the principles of Christianity, Musk went on. I think they're very good. Especially what principle? Do you believe the principle that you are a depraved and wicked sinner that is guilty of a very horrendous and painful death? And do you believe that Jesus paid that horrendous and painful death on your behalf? And by having faith in that perfect payment, that you are saved from God pouring out his wrath on you and causing you to experience a very painful and arduous death? Do you believe that part? Or do you believe that, it's good to turn the other cheek? Yeah, those are good things to do. Yeah, they are good things to do, but it's meaningless if you do them and you don't accept Jesus Christ's payment on your behalf. You could do all the good things in the world. It's not going to change your status in God's eyes because you need to be connected to Christ. So when he sees you, he sees Jesus and he doesn't see you. That's the deal. After Musk hesitated when Peterson pressed him to explain in what sense he was not religious, Peterson noted that how atheist Richard Dawkins recently labeled himself a cultural Christian. What we just said, despite not believing in the supernatural tenets of Christianity. I would say I'm probably a cultural Christian, said Musk, who noted he has had many conversations with Dawkins. I was brought up as an Anglican and I was baptized. Musk has spoken highly of Christianity's cultural impact in the past, arguing earlier this year that Western civilization is about absolutely screwed if it loses Christianity. During an interview with the popular Christian satire site The Babylon Bee in December 2021, Musk was asked if he would accept Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. Musk replied, if you saw this interview, it was really awkward. He was just really awkward. He's just like, like he really considered it. Musk replied that he admires the principles that Jesus advocated, such as treating people as you wish to be treated, i.e., dodging the question. In response to a tweet from a user on X urging him to confess a creator in May 2022, Musk wrote, thank you for, if I can get this stupid highlight thing out of the way, thank you for the blessing, but I'm okay going to hell, if that is indeed my destination, since the vast majority of all humans ever born will be there. This was a year after his interview with the Babylon Bee. Musk also recounted during the interview with Peterson how his 20-year-old son Xavier, who now identifies as a female named Vivian Jenna Wilson, is effectively dead after he was tricked into authorizing his chemical transition. So Musk is all against the deep state, basically, and the woke and the left, and he has now gone on this crusade to expose them and to be in alignment with the light. And of course, for him, the light seems like the Christianity is the right thing to do. It's just like with Dawkins. If you saw the interview, if you read the article, we covered it in one of these episodes, where Dawkins is like, well, I just don't like Islam. Islam is very dark. I like Christianity. I don't believe a word the Bible says. I really don't. But, I like my Christmas carols, and it seems like Christianity is just, good for society. So I like that. I'm willing to be part of this religious nationalist system because it's way better than the dark. Do you see the point? And these people are taking the mark. Of course, the mark hasn't been enforced yet, but they would be the ones that take the mark on their hand. They don't believe, but they're going along with it because there's benefits. This is a post on X. It says from Elon Musk, unless there is more bravery to stand up for what is fair and right, Christianity will perish. Keep all of these in mind, folks. These are going to be pins. And I want you to see the pattern. What do we see with Trump? Christians, you got to do something. You got to vote. Get off your butt and do something. Be part of this thing. Elon Musk. Christians, you got to do something. Christianity is coming to an end. We have to stand up to the evil side. We have to stand up to the devil. And we're the ones who are going to conquer him, right? That's what he's telling you. Christianity is going to perish. Well, no, Christianity is not going to perish because Christ is coming back and the people who have been saved will live with him forever. And in that sense, it's never going to perish. It will be very suppressed, as it always was, because there's going to be a counterfeit. And that counterfeit is going to come to the light. Oh, this is from The Guardian. Kevin Roberts, architect of the project, 2025, has closed ties to the radical Catholic group Opus Dei. Now, we talked about him being a Catholic militant before, but this is just another little shred of info. Heritage Foundation leader has long received spiritual guidance from group, and his policy goals align with his teachings. Kevin Roberts, the Heritage Foundation president and the architect of Project 2025, the conservative think tank's roadmap for a second Trump presidency, has close ties and receives regular spiritual guidance from an Opus Dei-led center in Washington, D.C., a hub of activity for the radical and secretive Catholic group. Guys, you have to realize the Catholic Church has controlled this country since 1871 at least. Okay, Washington, D.C. is a Catholic convention, and it's there to do the bidding of the Pope, even though on the surface it may not seem that way with all the woke stuff that's happened. But the Jesuits created wokeness, and they did it so that you would swing back to the right and embrace religious nationalism. But the Catholics control this country. They always have. Anyway, Roberts acknowledged in a speech last September that for years he has visited the Catholic Information Center, a K Street institution headed by an Opus Dei priest and incorporated by the Archdiocese of Washington on a weekly basis for Mass and formation or religious guidance. What is the church doing guiding these political endeavors, folks? That should be a Fennec Fox moment for you if you're new to this stuff. Opus Dei also organizes monthly retreats at the CIC. In the speech, which he delivered at the CIC and was recorded and is available online, Roberts spoke candidly about his strategy for achieving extreme policy goals that he supports, but are out of step with the views of a majority of Christians. What did, what's his name, Charlie Kirk say, remember? We got to take it from the unthinkable to, what is it, the reasonable, then the popular, then policy. There's stages that things have to go through, folks, and you are witnessing those stages playing out. Outlawing birth control is the hardest political battle facing conservatives in the future, the 50-year-old political strategist said. But he urged conservatives to pursue even small legislative victories, what he called radical incrementalism, to advance their most right-wing policy objectives. There he is. Okay, Gareth Gore, the author of the forthcoming book on Opus Dei, called the Catholic organization a political project shrouded in a veil of spirituality. The group's founder, Saint Josemaria Escriva, saw his followers as part of a rising militia, Gore said, who were seeking to enter battle against the enemies of Christ. Now, in parentheses, that really means the enemies of the Catholic Church. Like Project 2025, Opus Dei at its core is a reactionary stand against the progressive drift of society. Dark versus light. For decades now, the organization has thrown its resources at penetrating Washington's political and legal elite, and finally seems to have succeeded through its close association with men like Kevin Roberts and Leonard Leo. Very interesting and shadowy organization. Of course, there's many such organizations with these people. These people are all secret society members. You'll see it's some interesting little dualities between this guy and the Jesuits. But again, if you know these things, we're going to read about it in just a second. It's very clear that there's a lot behind what you see, and they're all the same side. The Bible tells you, Daniel 11, verse 27, memorize it. 2 kings at one table. Saint Josemaria Escriva. Let's see. Saint Josemaria Escriva de Balaguer y Albas was born in 1902, died in 1975, was a Spanish Catholic priest who founded Opus Dei, an organization of lay people. Look at this little sign. Nice little solar circle there. An organization of lay people and priests dedicated to the principle of everyday holiness. He was canonized in 2002 by Pope John Paul II, who declared Josemaria should be counted among the greatest witnesses of Christianity. So, very quick, the snake tells you that this person should be counted as one of the most important and meaningful witnesses for Christianity, in parentheses, which really means Catholicism. So that is significant. Escriva gained a doctorate in civil law at the Complutense University of Madrid and a doctorate in theology at the Lateran University in Rome. So very well educated by the beast. His principal work was the initiation, government, and expansion of Opus Dei. Escriva's best-known publication is The Way, which has been translated into 43 languages and it has sold several million copies. Very influential person. See these little coat of arms, and of course, all these things are just secret society types of situations. Let's read some more. There's something I highlighted here. That's right. Personality and attitudes. Attitudes in general. One of the persons who knew Escriva best was the Bishop of Madrid, where Opus Dei was initiated. Bishop Leopoldo Eijo y Garay for Escriva would visit and report to him quite frequently, and the two established a very strong friendship. In 1943 report to Rome, the bishop stated, quote, "The distinctive notes of his character are his energy and his capacity for organization and government, with an ability to pass unnoticed. This is also very, very important. He has shown himself most obedient to the church hierarchy. One very special hallmark of his priestly work is the way he fosters, in speech and writing, in public and private, love for the Holy Mother Church and for the Roman Pontiff. Very, very obedient, very well educated, very much about church and state unifying, very keeps to himself and stays unnoticed. Very interesting little themes we're seeing here with this man. Bishop Eijo Garay wrote to the Jesuit provincial of Toledo, Carlos Gomez Martinho, in 1941, Father Escriva is an exemplary priest chosen by God for apostolic enterprises, humble, prudent, self-sacrificing in work, docile to his bishop, of outstanding intelligence, and with a very solid spiritual and doctrinal formation. Iho Igaray told an officer of the Phalange that to think that Father Jose Maria Escriva is capable of creating anything secret is absurd. He is as frank and open as a child. So don't think that he would create anything secretive whatsoever. I think there's something else with some Jesuits here somewhere that I highlighted. Let's see, there's so much about Father Escriva. Here we go. Relations with other Catholic leaders. Luigi de Magistris, at the time the regent of the Vatican's Apostolic Penitentiary, wrote in 1989 a confidential vote asking for the suspension of the proceedings for Escriva's beatification. That, quote, "It is not a mystery that there were serious tensions between Escriva and the Jesuits." De Magistris then alluded to Escriva's distancing himself from the Jesuit priest Valentino Sanchez, who had previously been Escriva's confessor, over the Jesuits' opposition to the proposed constitutions of Opus Dei. Journalist Luis Carandel claims that during his years in Rome, Escriva kept his distance from the Jesuit superior general, the Spaniard Pedro Arrupe, to the extent that Arrupe once joked with Antonio Riberi, the apostolic nuncio to Spain, about doubting whether Escriva actually existed. Har, 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 so funny, so many jokes, and of course, what is the point of this is that you see these little tensions, just like with Vigano, that archbishop who got excommunicated recently, Cardinal Vigano or whatever, how he's exposing to you the dark side. And he even talked about the Pope being a Jesuit and how he hinted at the fact that the Jesuits are nefarious, which is a very interesting development. Again, when you see these types of things, they are very scripted and choreographed, and they're very, very interesting because they're designed to shape your opinion in one way, just like the Schofield Bible finally being exposed to you on mainstream, just like Carlo Vigano, whatever his name is, exposing to you that the Pope is a Jesuit, and because of that, he's evil, and so on. Just like you see these little dualities between the Jesuits and Opus Dei, but really the Jesuits and Opus Dei want the same thing, folks. The Jesuits were created as a military order to destroy the Protestant Reformation and bring everybody back to the Mother Church. Opus Dei, the creator of Opus Dei, saw it as a military organization in that other article, and is very, subservient and obedient to the Pope. So do the math. All these little dualities are they're either, false dualities, or they're competing secret societies within the snake, and of course, at the end of the day, they follow the order of the snake, and the snake knows what it's doing, and it is sometimes the dark wins, sometimes the light wins. Who really knows? This is why I said you can get lost with this stuff. The Bible tells you very clearly, 2 kings, 1 table. The duality you see, it's an illusion. And the devil chose, out of all these little vehicles on the earth, secret societies, yada, 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 the thing that the devil chose to manifest his world religion and unify all those pagan religions and all the mystery cults into one system is the Catholic Church. And of course, the man of sin at the top of that system. So that's that for general articles. Gosh, what conclusions can we take? Well, a couple of important highlights are as follows. The organizer of Project 2285 is a militant Catholic. That's very obvious, and he does the Pope's bidding. So that person who has succeeded, according to the other article, in creating a unified conservative vision with over 100, conservative organizations all in tow with one another, in tow with this organization that is founded by a militant Catholic who is advised by Opus Dei, which was an organization created also by a militant Catholic priest that wanted the world to be subservient to the Pope. Do the math, folks. Unified conservative vision means unified Catholic vision. That's what that means. The Protestants surrounding Trump, quote-unquote Protestants, are all Seven Mountain Mandate people, Christian, religious nationalists, we'll put it that way. Elon Musk has gone from dark to light, just like all these other celebrity conversions. Watch my Jesuit Hollywood episode. Jordan Peterson's probably going to convert to Catholicism pretty soon. Andrew Tate, we haven't gotten to Andrew Tate yet. We'll talk about Andrew Tate in the next section here, but Andrew Tate, you'll see over and over again, people are going to flip. They do these at different times. Candace Owens, Russell Brand I covered recently in another episode. Voluntas Deus Catholica, the will of God is Catholic. And of course, the will of God is Catholic. You need to get present to that. the will of God is Catholic. And of course, it's not what the Catholics think it is, but the will of God is Catholic. But Elon Musk has now gone from dark to light. He's gone from the woke side. Now it seems that he's all about the Christian stuff, and Christianity is good. We need to protect it. We need to have religion in society because it has good values and good morals. It's not about the gospel. It's about religion. Very interesting. Also interesting is that video on the Scofield Bible with dispensationalism being exposed and the rapture being exposed. And now, because of course they can't fake the rapture, obviously. So they're exposing it. And they're using the narrative of futurism as the bedrock. And people don't question their assumptions. They still believe futurism. But once the rapture's been exposed, well, how are the Jews going to be converted? Well, I guess we have to convert them. Do you see the sleight of hand being done? Rather than saying, well, what if all of dispensationalism is false? What if futurism is false? People don't go that far. They give you just enough. This is the deception. They give you just enough so that you can flip to their side. Just like with Trump, just like with the Olympics you'll see in the next section here. But dispensationalism is morphing. It's morphing into the NAR. Watch my Great Delusion series. You'll learn what's happening there with that. Instead of the Jews being converted, because of the tribulation or whatever, they're going to be converted by the church. The church has to convert the Jews. That's how we're going to bring Jesus back. Of course, there's also Trump bragging about his, peace deal with the Middle East and flirting with Netanyahu and all these little different things. All these things are just fodder for these people who are dispensationalists, Zionists, NAR type of people who believe, okay, we need to convert the Jews. So we need to bring peace to the Middle East. They need to bring their temple. We have a mass, charismatic revival. This is exactly in line. That's why Trump has his hand, or his feet, or whatever you want to call it. He's got his hand in both pockets. He's in the Zionist crowd, and he's in the religious nationalist crowd. And for a while, I couldn't understand, how do you reconcile that? Because we know Zionism is a problem. And then once I figured out, okay, well, Zionism is getting exposed. The Jews have to be converted because the world says everybody will marvel after the beast. That includes the Jews. That means the Jews have to see the light of Sunday. And lo and behold, if you look at history, Theodor Herzl promised the Pope in 1900, Pope Pius or whatever it was, I forget his name, a mass conversion of the Jews if they were to have their own homeland. And lo and behold, what do you have? You have Zionism 50 years later. So the Jews will be converted, folks. And once you realize that, then you realize why Trump has his hand in both pockets. He's with the Zionist buddy, and he's also with the religious nationalists, which doesn't make any sense from a normal perspective. But if you realize that he is the light bearer that's designed to be kind of like the Pied Piper that's bringing all these people from different threads, he's bringing the religious nationalist crowd to the false light, and he's bringing the Zionists and the Jews to the false light so that there can be peace, so that the Jews can experience a charismatic revival and be converted and worship the beast. He's the Pied Piper for all this stuff to happen. It's really pretty profound. Remember, if you've watched my Dark to Light, Zionism's End, or the French Revolution, or the Great Delusion series, I've talked about Napoleon, how Zionism actually started with the Jesuits, folks. It started with Napoleon way long time before people believe it started. It didn't start with Theodor Herzl. It didn't start with Moses Hess. It started with Napoleon. Napoleon was ready to declare a state of Israel, but he was stopped by the British Freemasons. Again, you have opposite sides, and they're all kind of fighting against each other, but really, at the end of the day, they're all doing the devil's bidding. Either way, he was stopped by the British, and they had to postpone that plan by 100 years. Of course, 100 years later, the Rothschilds took over England, and they voted to do the Balfour Agreement and all that stuff. So history really reveals to you that this has been a very, very long thread. Ever since the French Revolution, they were wanting to do Zionism and to do this narrative of the state of Israel. But they failed at first, and so they had to delay it by 100 years. So either way, the point is, look, these things confirm the trajectory of history. All the articles we looked at, they confirm the trajectory of history, folks. They are moving in one direction. All roads lead to Rome. And it's going to happen here in the United States first, because this is going to be where it happens. And that image that representation, that false government, the religious nationalist system, will be exported to the rest of the world. The future is not Jewish, Muslim, or atheist. It's Catholic. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and on to the Olympics. All right. Well, let's talk about the Olympics, because this obviously clogged the news cycle in the last, whatever, as the time of this video, last week or two. It's just been more and more shenanigans. And obviously, there's a lot to talk about there. It's been a big part of what's been happening with this dialectical dance. It's caused a lot of confusion and anger and division. So obviously, it has the signature of the devil all over it. Also, you're going to see the same thing as the whole thing with Trump, which is this idea of these two narratives that are emerging. There's the liberal narrative, and then there's the counter narrative that is exposing to you the hidden truth. And of course, in doing so, it builds trust with you to the point where it's inviting you and baiting you emotionally to sign on to their solution. This is the point. It's just dualistic games, of gaslighting. One narrative says that it's a harmless pagan festival, that it was just a reenactment of some Bacchanalia or whatever, some hedonistic, Dionysius wine god festival type of thing. The others say, look, they're mocking Christ. It's the Last Supper. Of course, a perfectly timed photo, just like with Trump. And of course, conspiracies are raging right now, and everybody's saying they're hiding the true intention of this event. And look at all these things that are coming out. And as a result, it makes you feel, when you see these things being exposed, that, man, maybe these guys are right. Maybe the people who are exposing these things are the good guys, and they're right because they're giving you a little truth. This is the deception. The psyop is that it's a psyop. This is what you have to get. I hope that you get this, and I hope the people around you get this as you move forward, as more and more of these things happen. The psyop is that it's a psyop. The psyop is that it's a psyop. It's baiting Christians into thinking that there's something nefarious going on. And it's true, something nefarious is going on, but not in the way that it's being revealed to you. The real nefarious people are using the obvious nefarious people as fodder to make you side with them. The good cop is throwing the bad cop under the bus so that you can have trust in the good cop. But the good cop is a cop, folks. He wants to throw you in jail, and that's the point. All right, let's get to this. This is from humanevents.com. Very important that you pay attention to this headline. Vatican. French bishops denounce Olympic scenes of mockery of Christianity. So the Vatican is echoing a particular message, and we're going to see a lot of people aligning with that message. Very interesting articles indeed. 1 second. Oh, these ad choices, my goodness. How do I get rid of this? Okay, well, doesn't seem I can get rid of it. Some of these things, like, they format their sites to where if you minimize the window, it's a nightmare. Anyway, following scenes appearing to mock the Last Supper with drag queens during the opening scenes of the Olympics in Paris Friday, the French Bishops' Conference from the Vatican has come out to condemn the performance's scenes of derision and mockery of Christianity. So the bishops are all over it. The Olympics stated on X that the drag queens appearing to act out the Last Supper was actually an interpretation of the Greek god Dionysius that makes us aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. So you have a liberal narrative, and you have a counter narrative from the Vatican. Very important. Here's the pictures. Obviously, you probably have seen them by now with I think she's like a trans or something, and enacting this event. And it's obviously, look, the thing is, you got to remember two kings are one table. Of course, this is another thing too. This is another interesting thing where the gays against groomers comes out against these people. Sorry, you can't see it. This stupid thing is kind of blocking it, but hopefully you can tell these trannies are dancing with children. Obviously, it's just a crazy situation. And gays against groomers are now coming out and saying, we're absolutely disgusted to see these drag queens and half-naked gender cultists dance around little kids at the Olympics for the entire world to watch. This agenda isn't just an American issue, it's global. And if this doesn't horrify you, then you aren't paying attention. Aren't you horrified, Christian? Aren't you going to do something? What's the solution to these transgenders dancing with children? Well, we need to get the Bible back in school. We need to get religion and politics back united the way it used to be. Otherwise, we're going to have all this crazy stuff. Even the gays are turning a cheek, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Of course, there's videos of these people, and it's just hedonism and debauchery, and it's just obvious evil. Low-hanging fruit for the king of the north to say, look how evil this is. I have the noble solution. Speaking of dark to light, Monsignor Carlo Maria Vigano's statement from his website following the sacrileges and scandals of the Paris Olympics Games. So the Vatican and the one who got excommunicated by the Vatican is agreeing. Very interesting. And the homosexuals are agreeing to this moral situation that's going on. The opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics Games is only the latest in a long series of vile attacks on God, the Catholic Church, and natural morality by the Antichrist elite that holds Western countries hostage. Who is the Antichrist elite, folks? If you know your history, the Antichrist elite is the papacy and all the surrounding forces like the Jesuits and secret societies who are under their control, the papal families, the various families like Rothschilds and Rockefellers, all these people that do the Pope's bidding. Those are the Antichrist elite, not the atheistic government that's being presented to you. We had seen no less disconcerting scenes at the 2012 London Olympics, the 2016 inauguration of Gothard Tunnel, and the 2022 Commonwealth Games featuring infernal figures, ghosts, and terrifying animals, which, again, they're doing this on purpose to build the momentum. And now we are reaching the inflection point to cross from dark to light. The elite who organize these ceremonies demand not only the right to blasphemy and the obscene display of the foulest vices, but even their mute acceptance by Catholics and the decent people who are forced to suffer the outrage of seeing the most sacred symbols of their faith and the very foundations of the natural law desecrated. Do you see what the devil's doing here, folks? He's baiting you with blasphemy into religious nationalism. It's brilliantly evil. Brilliantly evil. Aren't you upset, Christian? Aren't you horrified? Well, then do something about it. Come on. Come on, don't you want to do something about it against these atheists who are desecrating your religion? Don't you want your religion back? That's exactly what's happening here, folks. And you're going to see that same spirit and voice echoed through people like Andrew Tate and many others. We witness a dystopian dance macabre in which holograms of the horsemen of the apocalypse alternated with plump blue Dionysius, served under a bell of various courses, the parody of the LGBTQ Last Supper, the truculent performance of a decapitated Marie Antoinette singing the Seira, called to celebrate the horrors of the French Revolution, the ballets of the bearded transvestites and effeminate dancers accompanied by pitiful mime singers. Yeah, it was a clown show, for sure. I mean, it's a total clown show, but that's by design. In this provocative spectacle, Satan knows how to do nothing except ruin God's creative perfection, showing himself as the envious author of every counterfeit. But what makes it counterfeit is not that it's obviously evil, folks. Do you see the problem being ignored here? Let me put it that way. Satan is the author of counterfeits. What does the Bible say about Satan? He appears as an angel of light. He appears as an angel of light, as a good thing, as a reasonable thing. A good counterfeit is not, let me put it this way, a counterfeit, the way he's using the word counterfeit here is not the way the counterfeit is supposed to be used. These people doing all this LGBTQ, quote-unquote, Last Supper, whatever they were doing, it was all staged anyway, but either way, whatever they're doing, that's not a counterfeit. That is not a counterfeit whatsoever. That is just open, low-hanging fruit, just blatant blasphemy. Easy to spot. Even if you have no discernment, it's very easy to spot that this is wrong. Satan creating a counterfeit is, for example, the person who's speaking to you, Carlo Vigano, through this letter, and arguing, oh, look, the Jesuit Pope is so evil, we need to get back to the good old days. That's the counterfeit, folks. Satan is the one that appears to you as a reasonable solution to the problem that he's created for you. Antichrist means against Christ and in place of Christ. Two meanings in the same word. That means the devil uses duality to bring about his world solution. He uses the openly against Christ part, which is obviously evil, to introduce the in place of Christ solution, which is what the Bible warns you of. Moving on. Satan creates nothing. He only ruins everything, which is true. He does not invent. He tampers, and his followers are no different. They humiliate woman's femininity in order to erase the motherhood that recalls the Virgin Mother. They castrate man's manhood in order to tear from him the image of God's fatherhood. They corrupt the little ones in order to kill innocence in them and make them victims of the most abject wokeism. So he's identifying to you some real problems. And of course, what's the solution from his perspective? That's the important part. The opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games have given scandal not only because of the arrogant display of the ugly and obscene, but because of the infernal subversion of good and evil. The insane claim to be able to blaspheme and desecrate everything, even what is most sacred, in the name of an ideology of death, ugliness, and lies that defiles Christ and scandalizes those who recognize him as Lord and God. It is no coincidence that one sponsoring this revolting carnival is an emissary of the World Economic Forum, Emmanuel Macron, who passes off a transvestite as his own wife with impunity, just as Barack Obama is accompanied by a muscular man in a wig. Woo! Vigano's really laying it down, isn't he? It is the reign of mystification, of falsehood, of fiction erected as totem, in which man is disfigured precisely because he is created in the image and likeness of God. The King of the North is very eloquent, and if you don't have discernment, you will believe that he's coming to rescue you. Tolerance cannot be the alibi for the systematic destruction of Christian society, a society by which billions of honest and hitherto silent people identify themselves. Does the beast care about other quote-unquote Christians? Really? No, it doesn't. It cares about itself. So when it's using Christian to lump itself in with all the other Christians, we are just together in this fight, my brothers and sisters. Really what it's doing is it's appearing righteous to you so that it can take the lead against this invented conflict. This prevarication must end, and it must end not so much and not only because it hurts the sensibilities of believers, but because it offends the majesty of God. Satan does not have the rights of God. Evil cannot be put on the same level as God, or as good, nor can lies be equated with the truth. This is what our civilization is based on, a civilization that some would like to bury under the physical and moral rubble of a world in shambles. Dark to light, folks. Don't let those communists take over. It must be made clear that the patience and forbearance of the faithful and of citizens have been exhausted. Here we go. Pay attention. That it is no longer time to deplore, but to act. Even and especially when civil and religious authority are complicit in the betrayal. You must stand up to tyranny as a Christian. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. It is therefore necessary for Christians to organize around the world with concrete actions. First and foremost, with a boycott of the Olympic Games and all of their sponsors. It is equally necessary for companies not subservient to globalism to revoke their sponsorship contracts and for delegations and individual athletes to withdraw from the Games, which were inaugurated under the world in the worst auspices. We must expect and demand that those responsible for this intolerable bullying be held accountable for their actions, as well as for the corruption that also accompanies this event. Finally, the homosexual set designer who gave birth to this blasphemous and vulgar spectacle must repay the fee that Macaroni days charged French taxpayers. I urge Catholics to make reparation by prayer and fasting and penance for the outrages perpetrated against our Lord Jesus Christ and against our holy religion. And may the confident recourse of those who are good before the throne of the Most High not be divorced from a general awakening of consciences. Awakening to what? So that the King of Kings may once more reign over nations, societies, familiar, and the church. The King of Kings is reigning right now from heaven, folks. That's a done deal like a long time ago. And he's been reigning as his enemies are being put under his feet, because these things are predestined. Once that is complete, he will show up, destroy them, and take over the earth. The physical earth, rule physically on earth. Forever. That's eternity. Not a 1,000-year kingdom, but eternity. So the underlying attitude here is that you must do something. You have to do something, Christian. Otherwise, these big bad deep state's going to get your religion. You have to act. How would the apostles act, I wonder? How would they act to this? Well, I'll tell you, based on what they wrote, that they would say, we need to spread the gospel to these people. And if they refuse, then dust your feet off and let God judge them. How is the Catholic Church telling you to act? You need to take control. We need to take control of this situation. We need to do political actions. We need to do economic actions. Why? The Bible says God will not be mocked. Do you think God is going to let these people go unpunished for doing this mockery and this deception? Because they're in on it as well. I think he's going to let these people go unpunished. If you believe that you need to do something, you don't believe in a sovereign God. Now, do you? That's the underlying point. Do you see how the devil gets you under the guise of righteousness? Come on, they're mocking your religion. They're mocking Christ. You love Christ, don't you? You then do something politically and economically. Do something to enact justice on these people. Well, no. My response is God is sovereign. I'm not worried about these people. Yeah, these people are doing very blasphemous things, but why should I be infuriated? I think what's more infuriating is seeing people like Trump and the Project 2025 and J.D. Vance and all these false light people deceiving people with their false light solution, and these people following along with their ear band-aids when they were mocking liberals for putting masks on and being sheep and obeying whatever Fauci said or whatever the government said, yet they're obeying everything Trump says and frothing at the mouth and going to MAGA church with AR-15s. That's what I find more infuriating. This low-hanging fruit, it's not even consequential, folks. This is designed to bait you into outrage. Because when you're outraged and you're in an emotional situation, you don't judge correctly. The Bible tells you to be sober-minded. But of course, the devil doesn't want you to be sober-minded, so he can devour you with rage, with whatever else, right? And this is the point. You have to do something. But if you have to do something, God isn't sovereign. No, my friends, my brothers and sisters, God is sovereign. He has predestined all things. He will not be mocked, and there will come a time where he will return, and the lake of fire will open up, and everybody who has denied Christ or done any blasphemous things will be punished severely. And they will bow the knee to Christ as they're dying in flames. So you need to have faith in that. If you don't have faith in that, then that means you don't believe in a sovereign God. If you think you need to help God out to bring the justice, we got to bring justice. We got to punish these people. No, you don't. They need the gospel. They need to be shown the gospel. Of course, they'll probably reject it, but either way, they need to be shown the gospel. That's the biblical approach. The religious nationalist, Catholic take over the world approach is we need to punish these people and return Christ into the ruling seat. What does that really mean? That means take over the 7 mountains. Christ is king, quote unquote, how Candace Owens loves to say these days, Christ is king, which really just is a Catholic rallying cry to take over the world. But anyway, just to be aware. So far we have 2 witnesses. What do we have? We have Elon Musk. Actually, we have several witnesses. We have Elon Musk. We have Carlo Vigano. We have the bishops. Everybody's on the same page with this whole thing with the Olympics and with Christianizing society. Here's a post from, I think this guy's named Mike Cernovich. He's a big right-wing figure, but I didn't believe in God, it says. I realize they do, the evil ones. Wait a minute. The Bible says everybody's evil. But anyway, they take Christ seriously. They believe he is real, and they hate him. That is how I got back into the gospel? No, back into religion. Does this man understand the gospel? Does this man understand the difference between religion and the gospel? That religion is doing in order to be, and the gospel is being so that you can do, and that God gives you that new state of being. Does he understand that distinction? No, he does not. Because religion, just like with Elon Musk, it's whatever Christianity, religion, doing Christian stuff. Following the words of Jesus, right? Like doing what he did. Yeah, that's how you're saved, just doing stuff. That's religion. And of course, he has a picture of this thing, which again is just so... you have to see through these things, folks. You have to think, what is the reaction that this is getting? And how does that align with the trajectory of history and what the Bible says? Therefore, you see the purpose that it was created. This is such a well-timed photo, don't you think? Because there's more than 12 people here. There's like 18, and they're just doing their random thing. And they caught him in the perfect moment that looks, from a far away look, kind of like the Last Supper painting. And of course, everybody's up in arms that this was a mockery of the Last Supper. And you'll see there'll be the typical stuff that's like counter-narrative. No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, look at the proof. Look at this. Just designed to make you believe that they were actually intending to mock the Last Supper, and you're being lied to, and there's a evil deep state that's coordinating these things, and there's a virtuous group of people who are telling you the truth. Believe them. This is exactly what's happening. As far as I'm concerned, 2 kings, 1 table. But anyway, let's see. Oh, this is from Instagram. This is, I believe, from a Muslim site, but it's interesting because, again, the Muslims believe that the Jewish Messiah is the Dajjal, which is the Antichrist. And of course, the Jews are expecting a Messiah. They have that, what's his name? I forget his name now. Yannicka Rav Shlomo. And they're wanting to build a third temple. So all this stuff is coalescing, folks. I talk about it in my Great Delusion, but this guy posted the organizers of the 2024 Paris Olympics with all of its satanic, Masonic, and LGBTQ imagery is Jewish. Olympic ceremony shocked the world with paganism, satanic rituals, and sodomized dancing. They mocked the Christians and their symbols. Guess who is the art director who organized it? He's Jewish. And of course, they're exposing all these people. Thomas is promoting his own Talmudic religion to the masses during the Paris Olympic Games. Those big bad Antichrist Jews, they should be converted and come to the truth. When Scotland was Jewish, DNA evidence, archaeology, analysis of migrations, public and family records show 12th century Semitic roots. So the organizer of this was probably some Talmudic secret society Jew. Some of his demonic and occult art from other places. So, he's drinking out of the devil's cup. We know that. We know that whole shtick. A bull was displayed on stage at the opening ceremony. Isn't it connected to Baal worship? Yeah, you know what else is connected to Baal worship? Gold and sun and all this solar stuff that people are about with Trump. The false light. It's not just bulls, folks. It's a lot more. The obelisks that you see in front of the White House and the Vatican in London that the presidents make an oath to when they come into office. Who do you think they're making an oath to? Making an oath to Satan, which really, Satan is governing the world through the Catholic Church. This is from CBS News, July 29th. Paris Olympics organizers say sorry for offense, but insist opening ceremony did not depict the Last Supper. So you have King of the South telling you his narrative. Then you have, what do we got here? King of the North. This is Yahoo News, although Yahoo News is usually liberal, but anyway. Paris Olympics producers say the Last Supper inspired that opening ceremony scene. Many have done it before. This is a day before the previous article, July 28th. So what's going on here? One article a day before says that the Last Supper inspired the opening ceremony scene. Many have done it before, so don't judge us. The other one was, oh, we're sorry, it didn't really inspire. It was just a Greek, festival or whatever they're doing. So which one is it? Of course, these are designed to give you confusion. This is a screenshot from Instagram. This is a post from that main, tranny, whatever, Barbara Butch or whatever his name is. I guess she's a famous tranny or LGBTQ activist or something. And she posted, I don't know if this is her story. So this is a post from her of the picture that people took, where basically they're comparing it to the Last Supper. And she's saying, oh yes, the New Gay Testament. And she's tagging people in it. And the comment here is from FilmLad on Twitter saying, apparently Barbara Butch is the creature playing Christ in the Special Olympics opening ceremony. This is an Instagram post of hers after the performance. I'm not entertaining any more claims that this is a Greek Dionysius homage or whatever. So you have this, what is going on here? You have competing narratives, and it's structured in such a way to where the King of the South is denying, but then there's evidence being exposed that, oh, he's lying. The King of the South is lying. They are mocking Christianity. Look, they're mocking Christianity. And of course, as a result of that, if you believe that narrative, that was done to mock Christianity, of course it was done to mock Christianity. In some sense it was, folks. You gotta get that perspective. Of course, everything they do is designed to destroy Christianity. But what is the point? The point is to make you believe that, look, the big, bad, evil, atheist, satanic Democrats and left and wokeism and globalists are coming after your religion. So we need religion nationalism. We need this religion nationalist system. Otherwise, we're going to be slaves to these communists. We need to save the world. We need to do something. Carlo Vigano, what did Elon Musk say? We need to do something. Otherwise, Christianity is going to collapse. The popes or the Vatican, of course, Pope, same thing. We need to do something. You need to do something. You need to react to this in some way. You need to take action. That's what's being baited here by the devil. And it's truly brilliant if you understand the devil's scheme. City of no lights. Olympic host Paris deals with reported massive power outage. Again, they create a situation that gives you no other explanation other than it was an act of God. Just like with Trump. Are you starting to see a pattern of things? Two narratives. One is evil, one is chosen by God. And of course, they're both lies. Day one of the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris is in the books. And while the first day of the competition was great, heavy storms battered the City of Lights, and it got so bad that overnight the power appears to have gone out in large portions of the city. Around midnight, reports started circulating that the City of Lights had gone dark. That's interesting. While the reports and the cause of any blackouts have not yet been confirmed, some videos are floating around social media of what sure looks like a city in the midst of a major power outage. How do I get rid of you? Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Okay, happening now. Paris, France. And you see the darkness in Paris. Of course, people immediately made a connection to the impeccably timed apparent power outage and the opening ceremony, which happened about 36 hours earlier and featured what sure looked to most people like a clear-cut mockery of the Last Supper, which, by the way, 36 is a square of 6, which is 6 times 6, so there's that. Divine Intervention, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's all about the religious nationalist New World Order. Divine Intervention, alarms, alarms, massive power outage in Paris right now. God has spoken. Quick to appropriate God's actions. And of course, that means that their narrative of the truth is true. And therefore, the solution they're presenting against these villains is the solution that you should vote for and be with and align with. Do you see the point? Kim.com, power outage in France a day after the France staged a desperate opening ceremony of evil and mocked the Last Supper. Hallelujah. Here's another one from, oh, that's it. Well, anyway, that's the point I want to show you is that, again, you're seeing the same things. Now, we know, look, God is more than capable to do anything he wants. Like with the carnival, if you remember, I think it was in 2021, 2022, when they mocked Christ, and they got a couple signs there from the sky. The lightning hit the Christ the Redeemer statue in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then they got flooded. Like after the first week of the carnival, they got more flooded than they've ever been in a long time. That to me was an act of God, for sure, because they were really just mocking Christ. But the media didn't really play off of it like they're playing it now. Do you understand? This is a very interesting thing. Carnival is a worldwide event. It's a huge event, but nobody really cared. I mean, they covered a little bit of it, but nobody made a big deal about how they had this guy dressed up as Jesus and another guy dressed as the devil, and he was pushing him around and doing all this stuff, and people were cheering. I mean, nobody really made that big of a deal. The French Bishops Association didn't come out. The South American Bishops Association didn't come out. Twitter didn't blow up. Elon Musk didn't say, oh, look at these satanic Democrats doing this or whatever. It wasn't, from what I recall, it wasn't that big of a deal. But that was probably an act of God with the flooding that happened. I'm not convinced with this blackout, because blackouts are something that they can control, and they've used blackouts many times, and it's impeccably timed. And of course, what's the point? The point is to get you to think in terms of morality. It's no longer a political thing, folks. Everything is moving into everything is becoming moral. This is the Great Delusion. In order for the world to marvel after the beast, it has to be conditioned and primed into a moral way of thinking, that everything is a moral issue now. I've talked about all of these. AI, the Pope in the G7 summit, he's the one advising how we should use AI because it has to be moral. Cryptocurrency in the last one, I talked about how the Catholic Church is all about Cryptocurrency, we got to use it for moral purposes. Of course, the morality of the snake. Climate change. I have a whole episode on Dark to Light. The morality of climate change is now a moral issue. All of these things are moral. Politics are no longer just, okay, like, what do you believe about this or that in the economy or whatever else? It's a moral issue. The world is uniting into moral or immoral versus moral, good versus evil, dark versus light. And they are using all of the media and these events that they have to train you to think in moral terms. Look, it was an act of God. Look, they mock Christianity. Look, God punished them for it. That means we're right. That means the evil is getting conquered, and we're going to take over the 7 mountains of society, and the light is coming. We're going to be prosperous, and God is going to be back in schools, and it's going to be great. The world is entering the Great Delusion, folks. Here's our friend Andrew Tate. Let's see what he has to say. I wonder, does he agree with the Pope? Let's find out. Because I bet you he does. Okay, there's probably going to be some swear words here, but I will blot them out anyway. So
You notice how France didn't mock Islam? Because it's an Islamic country now. All of Paris would be on fire if they tried that shit. As a Christian, how are you not furious? How are you not angry?
How are you not angry as a Christian? How can't you just be angry and furious? When the Bible tells you in the Sermon on the Mount that anger is equivalent to murder in God's eyes.
By what they've just done. They've openly mocked your entire religion from head to toe. One of the most sacred images throughout all of Western civilization, the Last Supper. They mocked it.
Blessed are you when others revile you in my name, for so they did so with the prophets.
And you're just going to sit there as a Christian and what? Forgive? Turn the other cheek.
How dare you do that? How dare you forgive and turn the other cheek?
Go on, tell me. Tell me the Christian doctrine. Tell me about it.
We're going to have a response to this at the end, a theological response. But anyway.
I'm not called to take vengeance on them, because vengeance...
He's talking to a Christian right now. And you'll see that this Christian bends over because he's weak. He's weak in his theology. And my goal in showing you this is that you're not weak. And that when you have these kind of conversations, you know how to respond. So anyway.
Gods. So I'm called to battle my own flesh and to not get caught up in some culture war. I'm not.
Don't get caught up.
He started off good, but you're going to see he's going to lose it.
It is heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's right. Don't get caught up in a culture war. Just let Christian culture be mocked openly and destroyed in real time and decimated and replaced. That's it. Don't get caught up in a culture war. Don't get caught up in here.
This is the point where he loses the conversation. Why? Because Andrew Tate is all about synergism. He is 100% synergistic attitude, i.e., you have to do something in order for something to happen. It's not God who is sovereign, who has predestined reality, the evil and the good. You got to do something, and Christianity is going to be eliminated. Well, no, the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says that everybody will worship the devil through a counterfeit Christian reality. So I trust what the Bible says, and I trust that God has elect, that he's drawing out of this system, with my participation or not, but either way, I'm invited to participate. I'm also told that being reviled in the name of Jesus is a blessing, and it confirms my election. We are told that we're being conformed to the image of Christ. All of these things we're going to be covering, but this is how this guy should have responded. He should have stood for the sovereignty of God. And if you stand for the sovereignty of God, you will have a response, but most people are deceived by synergism. And this is how it gets you. And if you are a synergist, if you believe in free will salvation, you are doomed. People like Andrew Tate will eat you for lunch, because if you subscribe to synergism, then you do have to do something. You have to do something. God's not the one predestining things for a set way of unfolding that reveals his glory. See, I always appeal to God because he's the absolute. God has predestined things to unfold in a sequence that will reveal his glory, and everything is perfect. The good and the bad that happens is highly purposeful, and it is ordained by God. There's nothing you can do to rush it, to stop it, to slow it down, whatever else. That is the answer that would silence Andrew Tate. He would get very frustrated at the answer. The answer is not what this guy said.
In the flesh, let's just forgive and let them make fun of us forever and do absolutely fucking nothing, and let them mock us forever and let them replace us, and we're just going to sit here and turn the other cheek and read the Bible. Bro, I don't know what it's going to take for you people to stand up and stop taking this shit. France is supposed to be a Christian country. The worst thing about this is actually the fact that none of this has anything to do with sports. They could have done this at any other time. No, they chose this random event You can't even possibly link them. They have no excuse they can come up with that makes any kind of logical sense. It's not about sports. It's not about dedication. It's nothing to do with the event. They just say, everyone will be watching. Let's prove how disrespectful we are to Christianity, and let's prove how gay we are. There was no need for it at all.
I agree.
You see? He caved. He caved to the charismatic energy and the emotional appeal of Andrew Tate. He caved. Oh, okay. Well, I guess you're kind of right, huh? No, you got to stand your ground for God's sovereignty. Otherwise, you'll be devoured.
What should I have done, or what should Christians have done?
Are you mad?
Wrong position. Now watch this.
Yeah?
Are any Christians...
It's heartbreaking.
Are any Christians...
There you go. You have now crossed over into the deception. Are you mad? Are you off balance? Yeah, you know what? I am off balance. What do we need to do? Boom, you're devoured.
Christians at all, a single one going to even bother to go outside and protest? Are any Christians going to stop watching the Olympics? Are any Christian athletes going to step down? Are any of you going to do anything after the most blatant mocking, probably in history, of Jesus Christ? Or are you all going to sit there and do absolutely nothing and talk about how somehow, in the end, it'll be fine?
That is what matters. In the end, it will be fine. Jesus will return, give judgment where judgment is due, and enact eternity where you're going to live with him forever. And the first day of eternity, you're going to forget about all of this clown show. All of this stuff is meaningless, folks. So yeah, that is the hope of Christianity, and that is the peace beyond understanding, and why we can endure what we can endure. Because the hope of Christianity is sure.
Oh, we have a cancer tumor, but in the end, if you just ignore it, it's going to be fine in the end. No, they wouldn't dare do this to any other.
You see, at that point, he should have said, well, it doesn't matter. We are in the Genesis curse. Life is inherently suffering, and there's death, and we die, and there's diseases, and we can't control that. What matters is the resurrection, where you're going to have a perfect body and live forever. That's the promise of Christianity. But he didn't say that. He let Andrew Tate have the floor and ultimately have a point there.
Other religion. They wouldn't dare do it to Judaism, and they wouldn't dare do it to Islam. They would not dare. They mock Christians because you're endlessly weak, endlessly forgiving. You know what happens if somebody's endlessly forgiving? At first they're a good person, and in the end they're taken advantage of. And I understand, if you're making me read the Bible, me and you talk about these all the time, the Bible's all about forgiveness, and turn the other cheek, and Jesus forgives, and in the end he's coming back. I get all of that. I understand it. But as a man with beliefs...
There we go. But as a man with the flesh and sinful thoughts and desires, let's appeal to that authority.
Don't you have any semblance of rage inside of you? And not just you, all the Christians. Everyone's just going about their day. All the Christians in France are just doop-de-doo. What the fuck?
We should call it out, but we shouldn't let it enrage us.
Why?
Why?
Anger moves the world, friend.
You got to be careful, though. You can't fall into...
Fall into what? Anger moves the world.
You see how weak this guy is? I really, it's really frustrating because it's important to stand for the truth, which in some places he does, but he's weak. He's not checking Andrew Tate. He's letting Andrew Tate just be a bull in the china shop, and he's not standing for the sovereignty of God. He's not standing for the promise of the gospel, which is the resurrection. All of these things transcend worldly concerns, and Andrew Tate is extremely worldly.
It was, I guarantee, during the Christian Crusades, they were angry.
Oh, yeah. What happened during the Crusades, folks? How many people died during the Crusades? How many people were pillaged and abused and slaughtered because of the Crusades?
No, there is actually a huge movement to boycott the Olympics, and a lot of people are boycotting and not watching it. I will not watch a single sporting event. People can share the 100-meter relay and...
There you go. So now boycotting the Olympics, yada, yada. So anyway, I just want to show you that conversation and how not to argue with somebody and stand up for the truth, because this was a failed argument for the Christian in that conversation. This is from Colin Rugg on X. Justin, Andrew, and Tristan Tate are protesting outside a French embassy after Christians were mocked during the opening ceremony at the Paris Olympics. Christianity will not be mocked, said a sign held by Tate the Talisman. I am protesting outside of the French embassy for mocking Jesus during the Olympic ceremony, Cobra Tate said on X. The police are threatening to arrest me for unlawful assembly. I am currently on bail and will face a minimum 3 months in prison. I do this as a Muslim. I told you Andrew Tate is going to come around and convert. He's going to be there pretty soon. Let's see here. He just needs the right timing, They got him with this whole prison thing, and, they probably blackmailed him with all these, women and rape assaults and assault charges. And now he's starting to do the Pope's bidding with all of this. Come on, Christians, come on, Christians, come on, Christians. You're doing the Pope's bidding, folks. And in urging Christians to be embracing religious nationalism. So he's going to come around just like all these other guys. The question is when, it's not if. Here they are.
Let's go to jail.
Jail for Jesus.
Jail for Jesus. Look at him with a smile on his face, protesting, and he's a quote-unquote Muslim, but you're going to learn more about that in just a second.
Jail for Jesus.
Amen.
Amen.
I think this is in Romania. Yeah, because he was in Romania. Anyway. So Andrew Tate, he's the voice of reason, folks. All you weak pansy Christians that don't want to do anything and keep forgiving, you got to listen to Andrew Tate. Look at him. He's being a man and standing up for your religion, even though he's not Christian, quote unquote, yet. Here's another one of him protesting, quote unquote, protesting.
I believe most of you are Christians. I'm a Muslim. Yes, this is Romania, supposed to be the most Christian country in Europe. You cannot allow them to desecrate something as important as the Last Supper with transsexuals and little children, pedophilia.
Gosh, isn't that just so seductive, folks? I want you to pay attention with new eyes to these things. I want you to look at this really closely. The devil comes as an angel of light, my friends. The arguments that he's making to somebody without discernment are extremely noble and virtuous. Look at these people desecrating what matters most to you with transsexuals and pedophilia. Aren't you disgusted? I'm standing up for it. Aren't you going to stand up for it? Such noble intentions, and ultimately, if you understand what's really going on here, it is so evil.
There has to be a point you stand up for your beliefs. If you have something in life and you don't stand up for it, it will not last. If you have a house, you don't maintain it, it will fall down. Business, you don't work, it's gone. Relationship, you don't take care of her, she'll leave you.
You know what the Bible says? The Bible says many things about this. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. The horse is prepared for battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. What does the Bible reveal to you? Philippians 2:12 through 13. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. ... For it is God who works in you and through you for his good pleasure. And many, many such verses which reveal to you that you can do whatever you want. Like James, the book of James talks about this, how he actually rebukes people for being so ambitious. There's a lot of rebukes against ambition, which of course Andrew Tate is all about ambition. And he's echoing that. You got to do something. If you don't work on your relationship, no, if God doesn't sustain your relationship, then it's gonna come to an end. Every relationship we have is ordained by God, the good ones and the bad ones. So ultimately, he's not acknowledging the sovereignty of God. God is the primary cause of all things, folks. And if you don't learn to relate to that as the truth, you're going to be swept up in these delusions as they come down the pipeline. There's more and more of them going to come. And the fundamental bedrock is synergism. You have to remember God is sovereign in all things.
It's the same with religion. If you Christians don't start standing up for things, when they mock you publicly and openly, you'll have no religion left. It doesn't matter. It's a
Christianity is not a religion.
Matter of time. Especially now, Romania and all these other countries have opened the border. Millions of people who come here are not.
There you go. Dramatic. Same stuff they're doing in the United States. Oh my gosh, the liberals are coming after us.
Christian. And if you don't say this is a Christian country and we respect Christianity, they won't respect it.
What does that mean? If you don't say this is a Christian country, i.e., legalize unified church and state in a system that is unified. That's what that means. If you don't do that, then you're going to be taken over.
It's the end. And it's the man's job. It's the job of men to defend. Man, strong.
He's got a strong masculine look. He's got muscles. He's got, a loud voice. He's angry. Gosh, maybe we should respect him as an authority. He really cares.
This is what a man is supposed to do. When they try this crap again, I expect to see you all at the next embassy, wherever it is. Guys.
Whew. Talk about the Great Delusion, folks. If you don't have discernment, you get so easily snared by this stuff. You really do. And most people will. Now let's learn a little bit about Andrew Tate, our friend Andrew Tate. My dad was a chess genius and CIA operative. That's the only line I'm going to read. He talks about his mother being subservient, and that's all that men want. But really, this is the line that you want. My dad was a chess genius, CIA operative. Did you know that about Andrew Tate? Now you do. This is from BuzzFeed. And the untold story of Andrew Tate, the internet's most notorious influencer. Of course, it's talking about how he came to his wealth and power and influence through all his shenanigans, and now how he's basically dealing with the blackmailing issues that he's, of course, he doesn't say he's got blackmail, but we all know how these things go, folks. These people are victims to their own lusts and desires, and they're honeypotted. And then when the powers that be, whether the Jesuits or whatever other secret society need them, they flip on them and they blackmail them. And now, okay, you want to play ball, then you have to do what we say. And of course, he's plenty willing to do what he says, because what they say, because Andrew Tate is all about just surviving and benefiting from whatever he can do. He doesn't care about the truth. So if he's told to jump left, he'll jump left. He'll jump right, he'll jump right. What did I highlight here? I highlighted something very interesting that his aunt was saying. Oh, let's see, maybe it erased my highlight. There it is. It didn't. Yay. Okay. Through it all, Andrew and Tristan's aunt Elizabeth continues to support her nephews. She said that he has spoken to the U.S. Embassy in Romania about their detention and has reached out to the President Joe Biden, though she said he hasn't responded. The State Department confirmed it was aware of the arrests of the two citizens, but would not comment further due to privacy considerations. Here we go. She believes that the brothers will eventually be freed and hopes it will be a lesson for them. They went to church when they were little, she said. Now they're older, they walked away from their roots. But people tend to go back to their roots. Yes, they do. They will be humbled, and they'll come out better men. This is a very interesting quote. Because, how does she know all these things? Is this just wisdom? It's just wisdom of life, or is there something more going on? I wonder, considering the family background. Well, this is from thenewsmovement.com. I don't know when this article is, but I think it's relatively recent because of certain things. Andrew Tate faked his conversion to Islam for business reasons, whistleblower says. Andrew Tate faked his public conversion to Islam in order to, got to scratch my nose here, to reach new audiences and improve his business prospects, a source who worked for the influencer told the News Movement. Tate, 36, is not actually a Muslim and openly spoke about adopting the faith in the hope that it would improve his business credentials in Dubai, according to a former member of Tate's marketing team who calls himself Eli X. Anpa. He also aims to increase his influence and earnings by accessing the estimated 2 billion Muslims in the world, Eli, who worked for Tate for 2 years, added. He's not actually Muslim, it's just because he's in Dubai, because he wants to be friends with all the sheikhs and stuff. All of a sudden, he starts to do business with sheikhs. All of a sudden, he's Muslim. How did I find out? Sitting at a table in Dubai with him is when he told us. I asked him, are you actually Muslim? He said, well, kind of, not really. I'm just kind of doing it because I'm in the United Arab Emirates, and it's good for public perception. So is Andrew Tate the kind of guy that will do what you tell him if the motivation is right? Of course he will. He's the one that will take the mark on the hand, absolutely. Although, who knows, maybe he'll come to believe in the mark too. Tate's public announcement of his conversion came just before he was arrested in December 2022 with his brother Tristan and 2 women on suspicion of human trafficking and rape, in which he is now awaiting trial. All 4 denied the allegations. So you have a little situation, and he converted, just to do business. Who's to say he's not going to convert as the solution to be let go of these allegations, just like Russell Brand, just like all these other people. In a new TNM documentary examining Tate's conversion and its reception among Muslims, the influencer's right-hand man, Jules Sullivan, said it was disgusting that anyone would question his newfound faith. So Tate is a truth seeker, this guy says. At one point he was an atheist. Got something in my eye here, sorry about that. At one point he was Orthodox Christian. It was inevitable that he would find Islam. Sullivan, who is a senior member of Tate's 8,000 per year War Room Boys Club, said. But in the documentary Faith or Fraud, Why Did Andrew Tate Convert to Islam? Young Muslims questioned the sincerity of the announcement. My gosh, something just got into my eye. Yusra Samir Imran, a Muslim writer, said she worries that if Tate becomes like this face of Islam and masculinity, whether that will then reaffirmed to Islamophobes their stereotype and their sort of misconception of Islam being this religion that endorses violence towards women. Don't worry, he's going to convert pretty soon, folks. His days are numbered. The Islamic religion is coming to an end. Tate has spoken at length in the past about religion, saying that religious people were either hypocrites or psychopaths. And even shortly after his conversion said, in Dubai, I'm happy to be Muslim. In Romania, I'm happy to be a Christian. Does this sound like somebody that would be like a double agent? Kind of maybe like his father, a CIA chess genius. British Muslim influencer Mohammed Hijab, who has provoked controversy in the past for his views on women, homosexuality, and transgender people, spoke in support of Tate and said that he followed in the footsteps of other famous converts. You'll find a fringe minority of Muslim people had been, for example, concerned about the conversion of Malcolm X at his time. He said, you'll be surprised to find that even in this case of Muhammad Ali, no one remembers those voices. But we all remember the conversions and the subsequent legacies that these people have left. And I don't think Andrew Tate is following kind of the same footsteps. The influencer and Muslim convert Sean Ramiz responded to that point saying, quote, I don't remember Muhammad Ali or Malcolm selling me a course. I don't remember them telling me that women shouldn't work, and I certainly don't think that Taliban would have liked Muhammad Ali or Malcolm X back in the day. Now, if you know really quick about Islam, for within one generation after Muhammad's death, the Gnostics invaded Islam and created secret societies. They've had secret societies governing Islam since the beginning of time. It's a mystery religion, just like everything else. It's part of the mystery religion. So, if you know that these people are, when they say they're Muslim, they're really just part of, like, you know, the whatever club they're in, and that you either swear an oath to the Quran or swear an oath to whatever else, you're always going to have a duplicitous life. You're going to have on the surface something that you tell people, and then you have the initiated who know what's really going on. So you put one and one together. Andrew Tate does whatever he wherever the benefit's at. In Romania, I'm a Christian. In Dubai, I'm a Muslim. Okay. His dad was a CIA agent. He told one of his friends who was working with him for 2 years that, well, I just converted to Islam because whatever, good for business. Who's pulling the strings here? And the answer is that whoever is giving him the money, and of course he's going to convert to Christianity next. That's the next thing because he's an asset. But the timing has to be right. Here's another interesting article. This is from Instagram, AF Post. Iran condemns 2024 Olympics for mocking the Last Supper. What's going on? This is fascinating. The insulting representation of Jesus Christ in Paris yesterday was completely offensive and crossed all red lines. From Iran, a Muslim country that's at odds with everybody else. France, a country with a major history of Christianity, must be ashamed of itself. And I implore our Christian people all over the world to speak out against this act. We absolutely condemn this. So the Antichrist Imam of Iran, or the Ayatollah, or whatever he is, who's a secret society member, is telling you that you need to act and you need to do something. Andrew Tate, who's a CIA-born, probably secret society, he's owned. He's not of himself. He's owned. He's a puppet. He's telling you, you need to get angry and act. The Vatican is telling you, you need to do something. The person who got excommunicated by the Vatican says, you need to do something and take action. Elon Musk, who's a cultural Christian, you need to do something, otherwise Christianity is going to collapse. Are you starting to see the situation here? There's an echo chamber being built, and it's transitioning from the legacy media echo chamber to the new false light echo chamber. You're still in the echo chamber, folks. You got to get out of the echo chamber. Going from being awake to the evils of the left doesn't mean anything. It just means you're joining the echo chamber of the right. And of course, that is only going to grow in the coming months and years. Just in, Iran has summoned the French ambassador due to an offensive portrayal of Jesus Christ. During the Olympics opening ceremony, Muslims revered Jesus as a prophet of God. Could this be part of the dialectic to bring the Muslims to the beast? I think so. Might be something. Got to pay attention to false signs and wonders in the Third Temple. This is Donald Trump. Thousands of Christians in France, I'm going to pause this video, gathered together in a breathtaking display of faith and unity. Who else thinks we need more of this? The mainstream media does not want you to share this. Again, two narratives. You have the liberal media, and then you have the champions of the light that are telling you, look, what's really happening. These people are in solidarity with each other. They're taking action against all this evil satanic stuff. And what are they doing? We need more of this kind of stuff. We need revival in the world, folks. We need religion. Come on, you got to take action. Let's see if we can play it. What are they singing? A song dedicated to Mary. And if you can tell, actually, I'm just noticing that. I think, I don't know if I can tell. Let's see if we can zoom in. Can we zoom in? Nah, I can't. You can't. But you can look at this in your own video. I just noticed this because they're singing the Ave Maria. Look at this statue here. There's a statue right in the middle of this crowd. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a glowing statue. And it looks to me, I could be wrong, so I'm not saying this is absolute fact, but it looks to me like it's a statue of Mary, and they're holding the statue of Mary up. So this is a very Catholic thing. What is Trump doing? Sharing a Catholic thing, and people singing an ode to Mary, and rallying against the bad cop deep state, saying, we need more of this. Who else thinks we need more of this? Do you get the point? And who pays Trump's bills? One more to go here. This is, this is good. I like this one. This is an interesting situation.
Stood and sided with the resistance. You watched the movie Divergent, and you sided with the resistance. You watched V for Vendetta, and you cheered on the resistance. When it's fiction, you understand, and you side with the resistance. Yet when it's happening to you in real life, right now, in the news, in the world, right now, you refuse to see it. When it's the reality that you are living in, you're afraid to resist in real life. Blows my mind. So you watched the Hunger Games and you sided with the resistance. You watched Star Wars and you sided with the resistance. You watched The Matrix. You understood and sided with the resistance.
I wanted to get those other ones too, just to show you there's predictive programming been happening for years, folks. You think the predictive programming has only been with like the deep state, with like the big bad evil, whatever deep state bad cop? You think that's the only predictive programming? They've been programming you to think in a particular way for a long time. And that particular way is coming to the forefront with these dual narratives that are being pushed at you over and over and over again in more frequency, more cultural shaping, more cultural influencers agreeing with one another and creating the echo chamber. Every one of these situations is being done to create the echo chamber. And of course, this last video was it's one of those personal growth kind of videos, but it's very interesting because it reveals to you something very poignant. All of these movies, The Matrix, Star Wars, whatever else he mentioned, The Hunger Games, it's all about the underdog, the resistance against the big bad tyranny of some sort of deep state figure. And that's been programming to you. And of course, the point is, why don't you resist now? Well, what's the underlying attitude? That you have to resist. That you have to resist this tyrannical takeover. You got to resist the dark. And in so doing, you align yourself with the false light and are devoured. That's the point. And this mentality is going throughout the world. So as you can see, it's not just in religion, it's in politics, it's in personal growth, it's everywhere. So conclusion, a couple of things to take away from these stories. Andrew Tate, the Vatican, Iran, conservative U.S. media, personal growth. Everybody is aligning around this same topic, which is a fascinating situation. Such a fascinating situation. Everybody's pushing to you the same thing. It's to do something. Do something, Christian. Get angry. What's wrong with you for turning the other cheek? They want to bait you with anger and emotion so that you dive headlong into the dialectic. The devil is baiting you with blasphemy so that you get angry and accept his solution. Do you understand? It's brilliant gaslighting. It really is. But if you remember the truth, you stand for the sovereignty of God, These things don't faze you. It doesn't faze me that these people did what they did at the Olympics. It really doesn't. Because I know God will judge them. And I feel bad for them because they're so deceived by the devil. But whatever, God's going to judge them. It's not my responsibility to go and condemn them. And I mean, of course, yeah, we stand against it. But again, it's just like at this point, folks, these things are so obvious that they don't just happen like willy-nilly and, okay, this happens, so now we got to stand against it. No, the point is they're happening so that you stand against it. Do you understand? That's why I'm like, whatever, like I know what you're trying to do. I'm not going to react to you. It's not just something that happened in a vacuum. It's something designed to get you to react as a Christian. And if you don't have that reaction, well, you're not a Christian. What's wrong with you? You're a pansy, according to Andrew Tate. The apostles never fought tyranny. They never advocated voting or standing up against the tyranny. In fact, they actually advocated praying for the leadership so that they could be open to the gospel and be saved. Paul has a lot to write about that. Christianity, true Christianity, spread throughout the Roman Empire despite being massively underground, persecuted, mocked. There's an old graffiti called the Alexamenos Graffito. It's from the 2nd century approximately, which shows a graffiti that was written on stone of a guy worshiping Jesus, supposedly, with a horse's head. It's obviously mocking and reviling this person named Alexamenos, who was a believer. And it's one of the earliest views that we have that Christians believe Jesus was God and that resurrected. So it's just a nice piece of evidence. Even though the devil was mocking Christians, God used it for the good as a physical proof of Christianity. But what's the point? The point is that Christians have been mocked throughout time, folks. Did that stop Christianity from being persecuted? Let me put it this way. If there was any point in time when Christianity would have been stamped out, it would have been stamped out by the Roman Empire. When people were getting thrown into the Colosseum for sport, being eaten alive by lions and crucified and burned, when Christians had to go underground and it was illegal to be a Christian and people told on you and you would be tortured, if at any point in time Christianity would have been stamped out, it would have been stamped out. Well, it didn't. Then it was persecuted by the Catholic Church throughout time, through Sunday laws, Sunday legislations, didn't get stamped out. There was always genuine Christians. Then you had the Reformation, and you had all the horrors of the Inquisition, and people have all sorts of numbers to report on that. However many people you believe died in the Inquisition doesn't matter. The Inquisition happened. That's what matters. And many people were killed and tortured at the stake and killed for basically being, true to the God's word. Did Christianity get stamped out? No, it didn't. So you're telling me that the deep state is coming after Christianity. If I don't do something, if I don't protest, if I don't vote, if I don't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the Christianity, that's it. It's going to be stamped out. Well, no, sir, because the power of God has decreed all things to happen, and God's purpose will come to pass. All the elect that need to learn of the truth of Christ, of the gospel, will come to be saved. The devil cannot do anything about that. Nobody can do anything about that. You cannot stop God saving the people he has purposed to save before time began and bring them to himself. You can't stop that. Obviously, history proves that. So if history testifies against these people and the Bible testifies against these people, then ultimately you know that this is a delusion. Any obedience to the state or praying for individuals who are in power in the state was for the sake of the gospel so that these people could be saved and so that people could live peaceful lives and spread the gospel. That was the point. You weren't supposed to be fighting the state. Of course, people ran away when their lives were threatened, but the Christians didn't organize revolts or try to take the state out or replace the state. The state was not even an issue for Christians, man. The state is its own thing. It's a pagan authority, and it's been there. It's placed by God for his purposes. But nonetheless, we pray for these people. We hope that they receive the gospel, and we try to live obedient lives, of course, not in a situation where you have to obey the state over God, but you try to live in the world so that you can spread the gospel and spread the truth. You're not of the world, like Andrew Tate. You're in the world, and that's a very different, important distinction. But now, response to Andrew Tate and Vigano and all these people who are having the wrong view of Christianity. Of course, they don't have the right view because they're religious. It's religious nationalism. What does the Bible actually have to say? Well, let's see. Romans 12, couple of verses, not everything, just a couple just to give you a taste. Marks of the true Christian. Romans 12, 9 through 21. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Is Andrew Tate telling you to be patient in tribulation? No. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Bless those who persecute you, and bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Why? So you can spread the gospel, folks. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Do you believe that God is the judge of the earth? If you do, then there's nothing to worry about. There's no need for you to take vengeance. If you believe that God is the judge of the earth. If you take vengeance, that means you do not believe God is the judge of the earth. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by so doing, you will heap burning coals on his head. This is from the book of Proverbs, I think. But the point is, do not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. This is how you overcome evil, according to the Bible. Matthew 5, the Beatitudes, 2 through 12. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Andrew Tate. The meek, the humble, the people who you think are weak and pansies, they're the ones who are going to inherit the earth, according to Jesus himself. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Do you show mercy to someone when you take vengeful action in your righteous crusade to defend Christianity? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Are you a son of God if you're advocating taking vengeance? No. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So according to Jesus, your reward is great if people are reviling you and accusing you falsely. So rejoice and take it as a confirmation of your election. Matthew 5, verse 38 through 48, retaliation. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. All of these things are consistent with the other apostles and everything else in the Bible. Matthew 18, 21 through 23, the parable of the unforgiving servant. We've talked about this. In fact, I talk about this also in my Afterlife series. Great parable. Just a couple verses here. Then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore, the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of heaven, may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. What is the point of this parable? It's a beautiful way of rebuking Peter, because Peter's motivation for asking Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive? Is 7 enough? And then I can hold a grudge or maybe take vengeance. Is that okay? That was the motivation behind Peter's question. It was very off balance. His heart was not in the right place. And so rather than just openly straight rebuking him, Jesus, as usual, very classy and wise, responds with a parable and uses Peter's imbalance to reveal a profound truth about the way of being, which is what he brought. Christianity is a way of being, folks. And the parable of the unforgiving servant is a response to Peter's question, which really is a question that we all have. Oh man, this guy is really annoying me. How many times do I have to forgive him? Well, the answer is you have to keep forgiving because God has forgiven you. And you owe God way more than that person can ever owe you. Because God is the judge of the earth. And so every mistake that you make, God knows those mistakes. He can't be bribed. God is perfectly righteous. And so the mistake earns you a very painful death. And that's a just outcome. So you owe God your life and your suffering. Versus somebody who's offended you, you're not the judge of the earth. You're not responsible for enacting justice in the world. So forgive. It's not your responsibility to enact justice. Forgive. Why? Because God has forgiven you, and you owe him way more than anybody could ever owe you because you don't know everybody's sins. You know what people have done to you, but you don't know all the sins that somebody's done. God knows everything that you've done, and he's chosen in his mercy and grace to pass it over through Christ because Christ paid the debt that you owe, which is suffering that leads to death. So that parable, it reveals to us how God wants us to relate to one another through forgiveness. The reason that we forgive is because God has forgiven us. Not because we're weak, not because we're pansies, not because we're timid, because we have been forgiven and we rejoice in that forgiveness. And although it's hard to forgive people, we remind ourselves that we owe God way more than that person owes us. And that's why we forgive, according to Christ. When he says 77 times, he doesn't mean exactly 490 times, and that's it. People use numbers very different in the ancient times. So he's using a superlative to indicate, like, you're going to forgive as long as you're alive, Peter. Why? Because I've forgiven you, and you owe me your life. And not only that, you owe me a very arduous and tortuous death for your crimes against me as God. For idolatry, for coveting, for lust, for lying, for cheating, for stealing, for doing all the things that you've done as a human being. You owe me a painful, painful death. And if you don't trust in the perfect worth of Christ, you will pay that painful death in hell. But anyway, that's the parable of the unforgiving servant. And again, why can we act this way, folks? This is your response to these people like Andrew Tate and all these synergists that are wrapping the world in this great delusion with this synergistic lie. The reason we can act this way as Christians and be forgiving is because God has forgiven us and he will enact justice. He's appointed a day to judge the world and to have vengeance on all evil. Genesis 18:25 says that God is the judge of the earth. Far be it for you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked. Far be it from you, shall not the judge of the earth do what is just? The judge of the earth does what is just. What is just? The justice is to punish and destroy evil. And evil is going to be punished because in Matthew 25, the final judgment, 32-33, before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. So the final judgment, because Jesus has been given all authority under heaven, will be when Jesus returns, and he's going to divide the wicked from the elect, and the wicked are going to be thrown into the lake of fire. They're going to suffer enormously, and they're going to be destroyed. That you can guarantee. That is a guarantee from God. And if that's a guarantee, then there's nothing you need to worry about in terms of enacting justice, rebelling to tyranny, fighting the deep state, all this stuff. This is the Great Delusion, folks. And again, I preach and talk about predestination all the time because you need to get out of this synergistic trap. Things will get more and more synergistic, folks. They're going to get more and more synergistic. You saw how easily that Christian caved to Andrew Tate. He just bent over. He got weak. He wasn't strong in the word and in what Jesus said and in the sovereignty of God. And that is going to get even more and more prevalent in this Great Delusion because synergism is the poison of Babylon, and it's being used to wrap the world into the dialectic. If you stand for the sovereignty of God, you see all things are predestined, and you realize this is just a charade. But if you believe we got to do something, you are immediately sucked into the dialectic. It's really, truly profound how that works. But we are not the judges of the earth. Of course, the devil wants you to think that you can be like God. You can be the one that determines what's good and evil, and therefore you need to take action to enact justice. So it has the devil's signature all over it, but we are not responsible for enacting justice. We are responsible for sharing the gospel, for spreading the truth, for helping other Christians come out of delusion, especially in this generation. And ultimately, when you give up having to be the judge of the earth that enforces justice, you're actually free, folks. You're free. You're free from the storm. You're free from the dialectic. You're free from the burden of having to have anger and vengeance. I have a whole course on my website for paid members. Again, I'm not trying to pitch anything here, but it's a course on forgiveness. And if you're really struggling with forgiveness, check it out. If you're a paid member on the website, go watch the course. And if you want to watch it, just pay $5, watch the course in a month, and then unsubscribe. I don't care. It's a great course on forgiveness, and I talk a lot about this kind of stuff, which is the biblical approach to forgiveness and what forgiveness really is, which is giving up. It's truly profound because it all relates to this, folks. Forgiveness is not justifying somebody's works. You see, forgiveness for us and forgiveness for God are two different things. And I talk about this in that course, but forgiveness for God is very different because he's the judge of the earth, folks. He can't just let sins go. Do you understand? If he lets anybody go, oh, okay, it's all right. We'll let it pass this time. Are you kidding me? He's the judge of the earth. He's supposed to enact justice on every single thing. Otherwise, he's not sovereign or he's not good. So God forgiving people is a real problem for God because he wants to forgive people. He's merciful. He's steadfast love, but he's the judge of the earth. And if he lets sins go willy-nilly, he's not good and he's not sovereign. Do you see the problem that God overcomes with the gospel? The great problem for God really is forgiveness. How can God forgive your sins if he's the judge of the earth? If he's the one responsible for enacting justice? If he forgives you from stealing from another person, what's that other person who got stolen from say? Wait a minute, God, you're supposed to be the judge of the earth. Why did you let him go? So these types of things happen throughout history where God was merciful and God looked abominable in his own standards because he says in the book of Proverbs, it's an abomination to justify the wicked. And yet in the book of Romans, it says that he justifies the ungodly. So God looked abominable by his own standards. That is why Jesus came, to vindicate the name of God, to prove once and for all time, past, present, future, that God is completely dead serious about sin, that he is the righteous God and judge of the earth, that he doesn't forgive sins in the sense okay, well, we'll just throw it under the rug. No, sins have to be paid for. He forgives sinners, but sins are not forgiven. Sins are paid for. Sinners are forgiven. So God has a very different relationship to forgiveness than you and I do. We are not the judge of the earth. You and I are not responsible for enacting justice in everybody's life. We're not omnipresent. We're not omnipotent. We don't live forever. We're not self-existent. So we are not the judges of the earth. Therefore, when you are slighted, you have the freedom to let go of that and let go of judgment. Let go of the responsibility to make a judgment. Forgiveness is not justifying somebody's actions as good. Forgiveness is letting go of the gavel and exiting the courtroom of your mind. That is what forgiveness is, because forgiveness is getting out of the dialectic. When you are slighted, there is a party that is good, i.e. you, and an evil party, the party that did something to you. And that's the dialectic. And every side is going to have their justifications. You saw even with these, shenanigans at the Olympics. Oh, no, it was just a Dionysius thing. It was just a bacchanalia. Oh, no, you mocked Christ. Look at the picture. It looks the same. Every side has its justifications. And you are caught up in the dialectic of the two sides warring against each other in the courtroom. Forgiveness is letting go of the gavel and exiting the courtroom. You are not the judge. Doesn't mean you should not have a moral compass or not use discernment. But judging in terms of picking a side and getting involved with these things is futile. Forgiveness is the key. And the way to do that is to surrender your role as the judge. Because you're not the judge of the earth. You're not like God. But the devil wants you to think that way, and so that's why this stuff is an extension of the forbidden fruit. You'll be like God. God is sovereign, and that means that evil has a purpose for God's glory. People ignore that because they don't believe in predestination. They don't believe in the sovereignty of God. The devil is baiting people right now with obvious low-hanging fruit, evil, dark stuff, so they fall into the trap of being the ones to create the solution. You got to look, we have the Vatican, Iran, Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Trump, everybody's telling you to do something, Christian. You got to do something. They're creating the counterfeit by participating in these recommendations. When you protest, when you vote, when you go out and participate in accordance with what the snake is telling you and baiting you to do, you're not creating the solution, folks. You're creating the counterfeit, and that's exactly the point. That is exactly what the Bible warns you about. Romans 8:20-30 says that God works all things for the good. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for the good. Who are those who love God? Those who are called according to his purpose. You cannot love God unless you are called to love God. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called, and those whom he called, he also justified, and those whom he justified, he also glorified. Golden chain of redemption. One of them, at least. What's the point? Is that you're being conformed. You're being conformed to the image of Christ. What did Christ do? Christ was being brutally tortured to death, and he was praying that the people doing the torturing, that they would be forgiven. Can you imagine? That's the image you're being conformed to. So, does that mean fight against tyranny? No, it means endure all things, which is what the Bible tells you. Rejoice when you are persecuted. Rejoice when you're falsely accused, because it means your faith is on the right track. That's what it means. Watch my Satan series. The role of evil in God's plan is very important to understand. And a lot of people have been duped by synergism, by mythologies, by all kinds of things having to do with the devil. And as a result, they believe false teachings and false doctrines and have not clear understanding when it comes to evil and God's plan and all the evil that's happening in the world. You have to get familiar with that. So watch that series, the great series. If you do have to do something to make that evil have a purpose, in other words, if God, the Bible says God works all things for the good, right? The only reason he can do that is because he's sovereign. Do you understand? The only reason God can work things for the good is because he's sovereign and he predestined that evil for a purpose. Otherwise, if God is just reacting to evil things, then the evil that's happening is inherently meaningless, doesn't have a purpose. And God isn't sovereign because he's reacting to all the evil the devil and mankind is producing. That's not a sovereign God. This is God trying to panic and work things all for the good really quick, really quick. No, God works things for the good because he predestined things for his glory. All things, the good and the evil. If you have to do something to make that evil have a purpose, rebel, vote, protest, yada, 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 then God isn't sovereign. God depends on you to do something. Otherwise, Christianity is going to be extinguished. Come on, folks. What kind of God do you believe in order to believe such a thought? That God would put the gospel and the revelation of himself in the hands of his creation, which is flawed, and basically we are depraved unless God acts within us, and even then we're battling the flesh. Do you think God would rest his eternal glory in your hands? Really? I don't think so. But again, these people don't believe in the God of the Bible. They believe in a fictitious God of their own imagination, which they're kind of like hand in hand, but really they're doing the stuff and they're voting and protesting and bringing about the New World Order. And of course, they are bringing about the final solution and they're being deceived by it. Another thing to remember is that the end times are predestined, folks. Book of Revelation and Daniel tells you that the beast will come to power and be worshipped. Most of the world will take its mark and be deceived. There's going to be false prophets, false teachers, false apostles, false teachings, fairy tales. They're going to deceive many people. Both Christ and the apostles predicted these things. There's going to be counterfeit Christianity, counterfeit spirits and false signs and wonders, and all sorts of counterfeit things. Excuse me, my nose is dripping for some reason. Anyway, a lot of counterfeit things, a lot of counterfeit apostles and teachers and prophets and wolves in sheep's clothing. So all those things have been predestined and announced to you beforehand. There's nothing that you can do to prevent the devil from being worshipped and receive worship. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. God has allowed it to happen to destroy the wicked and to reveal his glory when he returns. It's God who is the primary cause. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11 through 12. Now, actually, I'm going to read from 9, because this is very important. The coming of the lawless one, which is the man of sin, which is the papal institution. Watch my episode on it called True Antichrist, Man of Lawlessness Revealed or Man of Sin Revealed. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and signs and false wonders, and with all wicked deception for those who are perishing because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. So these people who are perishing, they refuse to love the truth. Instead, they embraced religion, religious nationalism, and their own efforts, relying on their own power to be saved, which of course they're going to be doomed. But the coming of this system is by all power and activity of Satan. And then, again, you see this duality of secondary and primary causes. After you've been revealed the secondary cause, then you are reminded that God is sovereign. Verse 11, therefore God sends them great delusion, or strong delusion, so that they may believe what is false, in order that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So wait a minute, I thought the coming of the lawless one is by the power and working of Satan. It is by the power and working of Satan. But the Bible tells you that regardless of whatever Satan's doing, he doesn't do it willy-nilly. He does whatever God allows and has decreed. Satan is on a leash, folks. The power of Satan with all the coming and signs and wonders and things, yes, that's happening. And people will take the mark because of great deception and delusion, like what you're seeing right now. But the ultimate cause behind that, through decree and predestination, is God. The Bible tells you, therefore, God sends them strong delusion. God is the one who sends them the delusion. Well, how do you work that out? Well, the same way you work it out in other places, like in Chronicles, where it says, the Lord incited David to number the sons of Israel. And then in another place it says, Satan incited David. Well, we know from the book of James, God doesn't tempt anybody, because he can't be tempted. And he wouldn't tempt you to sin, to destroy you, because that would mean that God would hate you, and God is incapable of hate. He doesn't hate people. He hates sin, but he doesn't hate people. He loves people. He hates destroying the wicked. I take no pleasure in the death of anybody, he says. So how do you reconcile the two? Well, you reconcile that God is the authority behind what's happening. Satan is the one who tempted David to number the sons of Israel, because he was allowed to do it. Probably they had some sort of thing in the heavenly courtroom, just like with Job, where Satan is accusing Israel before God and saying, look, I bet you David's going to number. He's just so arrogant. Now that you gave him all this success, let me tempt him. I can prove to you that he's going to be so arrogant. He's going to number the sons of Israel. He's going to boast in his achievement. And he's not going to give you glory. So he says, okay, go ahead, David. Or go ahead, Satan. Tempt David. And then what happens? Satan tempts David. David sins. Now God gets to reveal his mercy in the ensuing thing. And I talk about that in my Satan series. It's profound. Everything is about God. God is the primary cause. Same thing with this. God is the one who, what? Sends them strong delusion. That means that you cannot stop the devil from being worshipped, folks. So anybody who says, okay, we got to vote, we got to protest, we got to do this. What does the Bible say, dude? Then, of course, the way they get out of this is by saying, well, that's in the past. That doesn't deal with us. Or, it's in the future. It's not dealing with us either. So again, the devil always has a clever way out of it. But if you read the Bible, what does it say? God is the one who has decreed all of these things to happen. All these people think that they're taking down the devil through their own efforts, but they're actually either deceived or they're working for the devil. So, do the math, put it all together. What do you get? Well, the Bible's told you the devil's going to be worshipped, folks. He's told you the devil's going to be worshipped. And society at the same time is telling you a different narrative. It's telling you that you're conquering the devil. Look, we are standing up to the devil. The deep state, people are waking up to the deep state. And we're getting religion back in schools. Like we're doing this thing. We're going to have revival, that baptism of America, whatever, in 2025. We're conquering evil. We're conquering the devil, guys. The devil is the god of this world and who's pretty much ruled the world through secret societies since the very beginning. And every position of power is the devil's. And yeah, that devil, we're conquering it through grassroots movements and voting and just good old fashioned values. We're conquering getting the Bible back in schools. Yeah. That'll show the devil. Come on, man. Just put one and one together. What does the Bible say? What does society say? They don't match. So who's right? The Bible's right. That means that the Great Delusion is that the thing that's coming is the thing that you were warned about. Do you get it? And it's because, again, people didn't love the truth. They didn't love the truth. They didn't lean on the sovereignty of God. They didn't lean on the gospel. They loved myths and drifted off into fairy tales, just like the Apostle Paul warns about. People today rebel against predestination and monergism. They find it offensive. And as a result, what do you do? What do you do? What do you choose? Well, you choose free will salvation. And as a result, you leave the door open. You have no choice, if you reject predestination and monergism, that God accomplishes salvation without your help, which is the truth and the good news. If you stubbornly fight against that, what do you have? You have synergism, and you have the door open, wide open, for the devil to prance in and to bait you, like that guy with the conversation with Tate, who had no backbone to stand up for the sovereignty of God. Maybe he's not educated on the sovereignty of God and doesn't know how to respond to these arguments. Either way, he got devoured by Andrew Tate. So this is the problem. So you have to reject Rome's version of salvation, which is synergism. The Protestants, when they rejected Rome, they didn't reject Rome all the way. That's why they lost. That's why the Protestant Reformation is over, folks. If you're going to reject the sacramental system, you have to reject free will salvation, because that's what actually makes the sacramental system possible. That you have to do something in order to participate in this religion and be saved. Whereas God did something for you in the past. And as a result, you're saved and you trust in that perfect work. All of these things are just baiting people into a synergist mindset. And synergism is what is aligning the world with all of these things. AI, climate change, cryptocurrency, politics, the Olympics, etc., etc. So it's all, the reason these things work is because of synergism. You got to do something. We got to do something for the environment. We got to take control of AI. We got to do this cryptocurrency. We have to make it a moral thing. This is synergism, folks, and synergism is Catholic. So you have to reject synergism if you want to be immune to all of the drama that's coming on the horizon. If you want to be an observer, if you want to be a fox, then you have to reject all of Rome's poisons, not just a few of them. And there's many, of course, I talk about them, but ultimately, if you trust in God predestining all things for his glory, you truly trust in that, and you truly believe that God accomplishes whatever he wants, regardless of what you do, and he's already chosen the best things possible to happen to reveal himself, and he's given you that, at least a good chunk of that in the Bible to understand events and what's happening. If you understand all these things truly, there's nothing to be worried about. There's nothing to be thrown off balance and, oh my gosh, look at these evil Antichrist people doing mockery of Jesus. And so they're going to get their fill. Don't worry. I'm not worried. I'm really not thrown off balance by that. I'm not thrown off balance by the light side either, but it's the light that's infuriating me more, if anything. It's just annoying me to see these well-meaning, brainwashed conservatives just being so swept up into this great delusion. That stuff just upsets me. It really does. But I'm not thrown off balance to the point where we need to do something and this. We need to spread the gospel. We need to spread the truth. That's what we need to do. And remember, Philippians 2:12 through 13, that it is God who's working through you. So yes, we need to do something in that sense. We need to spread the gospel. We need to, I do advocate sharing the truth with people, but I also want to remind you that God will wake up people on his own time. That is the monergist perspective. It's not up to you to save souls. It's not up to you to persuade anybody. It's not up to you to be convincing, right? It's not up to you to do any of that. It's up to you to simply participate. Predestination and participation are not mutually exclusive, folks. This is the mystery. This is the dance of life. Predestination is true, and so is participation. You got to participate. The Bible invites you to participate into God's plan. Doesn't mean you're the one doing the outcome, but you're participating, and that's a profound truth. It's a mystery of faith. So participate with the knowledge God has given you. Help other people come out of darkness, but remember that God is the one who gives the growth. And as long as you have that in mind, you are going to avoid the synergistic trap of panic and drama and being involved and, I have to do this, and otherwise it's not going to happen, or I got to do all these things. This is the synergist trap. And this is how people are being deceived, because they don't remember that God is sovereign. The devil's role is to make you forget that God is sovereign. Just like in the beginning, folks. Did God say that? He's not good. Oh, no, he doesn't want you to know, because then you're going to be like him. You're going to be like God. He doesn't want you to be like God. So God is not good. God is not sovereign. God is not truthful. That's the devil's angle. And this is exactly the point. Under the guise of coming to help you. Like with Andrew Tate when he was in Romania. Oh, aren't you mad, Christians? Look at these pedophiles and these, antichrists mocking your religion. What are you going to do about it? Gosh, you seem like the voice of reason, Andrew Tate. Well, think again, folks. Think again. Think twice. If we do have to do something, or else it won't happen, you're sucked into the dialectic, and God is not sovereign. That's what you give up. You give up the God of the Bible when you believe these things, because you create a false God in your mind that is waiting on you to achieve the outcome. God's appointed all things, both good and evil. You can't stop God's plans. You can't slow them down. You can't speed them up. You can't stop who's going to be saved, and you can't stop who's going to be damned. We don't know who's elect. We spread the truth, and we just pray for them to be opened. Obviously, most people aren't going to be open to the truth, but it is what it is. All of this emotion and baiting and call to action is just delusion. This is part of the delusion. People need to realize this, and it's only going to get worse. So look, folks, cling to the truth. Cling to the truth, cling close to the truth. Do not be deceived. Learn to be cool. Learn to be calm. Learn to be an observer. But don't sit on your hands either. Participate in God's plan with the elect by telling the truth to people. And, if it's a difficult conversation, leave it be, pray for them, but just be a witness for the truth. Jesus is returning, and these people have been allowed to deceive the world for very specific reasons. Because the wicked will be judged, and they're going to perish. The wicked need to be destroyed. So God has allowed them to be deceived so they can be destroyed and separate the elect from the non-elect, so that the elect who are saved can see the power of God, both in the present moment, in the sense of like, wow, you see all these things now, and you realize that could have been you. That could have been you, right? That could have. I look at myself 4 years ago. 4 years ago when I voted for Trump and bought gold, and it was all about the 17th letter of the alphabet. That could have been me. I could have been one of those people in the crowd with a Band-Aid over my ear. That could have been me. But by the grace of God, I'm not. And neither are you. So that reveals the glory of God, that he has given you supernatural awareness. Because otherwise you would be lost. You didn't come to these conclusions on your own. I don't come to these conclusions on my own. God has revealed things to everybody. I'm not saying, I'm anything special. I'm just saying I do not owe the things that I know or the knowledge that I have or all the things I'm speaking to. I don't owe that to myself or my own ingenuity or my own brilliance. I really don't. I was very wise in the world's wisdom. And I was in a dead end. I didn't learn anything of value. And ultimately those things helped me do what I'm doing now, but ultimately I was very lost too. I was very wise in the world's wisdom, but really didn't know anything that was truly valuable until I came to know the gospel. And the same as with you. God has supernaturally given you awareness, and that reveals the evil that you see. The delusion, the great evil and deception and gaslighting that you see only confirms God's mercy in revealing to you the truth and his power in supernaturally rescuing you from this delusion. And of course, another way that all these evil things reveal the glory of God is that Jesus will receive glory as the King of Kings when he returns supernaturally and the sky opens. The firmament opens and there's lightning and fire. And if you're alive to see that day, man, that's going to be the event of history to see. And we're going to be levitated into the air to meet him. And the lake of fire is going to open up and he's going to destroy these people with the breath of his mouth. You will know absolutely for sure that Christ is King of Kings and God of gods. That is the point of this evil system being allowed to come to power. It's being allowed to worship Satan, the God of this world, so that you know when God shows up who the real God is. So the more evil they get, the more it's going to reveal God's glory in the end. Do not lose heart. Cling close to the truth. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.